He is a powerful expert in the spirit transformation realm with the memories of 3 lifetimes. After an unexpected fall, he was unexpectedly reborn into his senior year of high school on Earth. His first lifetime was originally on Earth, but he was wayward and spoiled. Not only did his first love dream girl despise him, his fiancé forced him to cancel the engagement. His family considered him a disgrace. Overwhelmed, he ultimately chose to commit suicide. Unexpectedly, he was saved by the Eastern Immortal Emperor. He began the second lifetime and embarked on the path of cultivation. He's betrothed for life with his beloved junior sister Lainey. However, the two secretly entered the forbidden land of Immortal Eye of Universe to explore the origin of immortality, only to trigger forbidden power. This made them both perish. And in the third lifetime, surprisingly, God let him be reborn into his former senior year in high school. Carson was lying on the table, half dozing. Suddenly, without any signs, he stood up abruptly and let out a sorrowful and desperate roar. "Junior sister!" He stood blankly in the classroom with a bewildered expression. He remembered that he was supposed to be sneaking into the forbidden land of the Immortal Eye of the Universe with junior sister. How could he suddenly appear here? He only remembers the last moment. Junior sister Lainey fell in order to protect him. But now he is in the classroom, and it seems to be taking an exam. Someone poked him with a pen to make him sit down quickly, reminding him that he is currently taking an exam. Carson turned his head to look. The person was his friend, Grayson. At this moment, everyone was staring blankly at Carson, even the 2 invigilators. Then the whole class burst into laughter. Junior sister laughed. "Carson, did you sleepwalk here or something?" "I think he's been reading too many martial arts novels." And junior sister too. The campus belle Anna sitting by the window looked disappointed. Although her parents have always wanted her to be with Carson, this kind of playboy is nothing compared to Henry, whom she secretly admires. Henry cast a disdainful glance at Carson, a look of extreme contempt flashing across his face. This kind of person is simply not worthy of Anna or of being his rival in love. The 2 invigilators spoke up to stop the students from making noise. One of the teachers was quite displeased. Carson threatened that if he disrupted the exam discipline again, he would be asked to leave the examination hall directly. The one speaking was his English teacher. Could it be true that he has really reborn into his teenage years in senior year? Carson suddenly closed his eyes. He felt the surging spirit power within his body that could destroy the stars, but to his surprise, he found it empty. He was certain that he was not in an illusion, but had truly been reborn. He is no longer the ignorant and frivolous young man from before. Now he aims to regain everything he once had through his own strength. Since he has been reborn, his junior sister may also be reborn on Earth. Now he must quickly improve his strength to recover his cultivation achievements and find his junior sister. The English teacher scolded him for not sitting down for the exam, and told him to get out if he didn't want to take the test. Carson sneered and walked out of the classroom. Since he had been reborn, this kind of exam was just a trivial matter for him. Now, what he needed to do was to quickly recover his cultivation achievement. He strolled through the campus. He began to contemplate in his heart. Cultivation 8 realms are chi condensation, golden core, nascent soul, spirit transformation, Tao integration, great ascension, tribulation transcendence, immortal sovereign. In his previous lifetime, he was originally a spirit transformation realm great cultivator. Currently, what he needs to do is to quickly step into the first layer of the chi condensation realm and learn from the lessons of his previous lifetime. Not seeking bravery and progress, but aiming for steady and solid progress. This is to lay a good foundation for him to go further on the path of cultivation in the future. In the previous lifetime, Carson was the most beloved disciple of the Eastern Immortal Emperor. Carson was free to choose any cultivation techniques from various clans in the starry sky. So, although Carson is proficient in various clan techniques, which technique should he choose to improve his spiritual constitution? After careful consideration, He chose the Scientian Ascending Dragon Path technique, which is the best for a new disciple to solidify their spiritual constitution. It is perfect for Carson at this moment. He only saw him close his eyes and begin the first step of cultivation, drawing qi into the body. To his surprise, he successfully drew qi into his body in just 15 minutes. The Scientian Ascending Dragon Path is indeed the most suitable for beginners to solidify their spiritual constitution. At this time, Anna and Henry walked over with a group of people. Anna just asked what he was doing here. Before he could answer, Henry made a sarcastic remark. Perhaps Carson performed above his level and finished answering the exam questions early. The henchman behind him followed along and mocked in agreement. Only one girl was looking at him with a worried expression. This pure and kind girl named Arya previous lifetime has always been loyal to Carson. Unfortunately, he did not cherish her at that time. Surprisingly, Carson ignored her. Anna impatiently said again, "Carson, I'm talking to you." Carson then walked up to Arya, showing a gentle smile. Arya asked, "How did you do on the exam this time?" Arya's face turned red as she was stunned. She hadn't expected Carson to ignore Anna and talk to her instead. Nervously placing her hands on her chest, she replied softly, "Not bad." Suddenly, Carson rubbed Arya's head gently and said, "If you can get into the top 10 of the class, I have a mysterious gift for you." Arya immediately excitedly responded, "Really?" She immediately realized that Carson's attitude towards her was too intimate. She quickly lowered her head. Her face was already red to the base of her neck. She dared not look at Carson as she added, "I will try my best." Carson chuckled. "All right, I have something to do, so I'm leaving. Let's meet in 3 days." Anna watched Carson's departing figure. She felt very unhappy. How dare this guy ignore her? To regain her sense of loss, she was convinced that he was just putting on an act. The dignified immortal sovereign has returned to Earth. He unexpectedly set up a stall by the roadside selling talismans. Just now, he left the school. He just remembered that he is currently lodging at Anna's house. He suddenly felt a headache. He really didn't want to continue living at Anna's house. He wants to rent a place. But when he felt the meager amount of living expenses in his pocket, it was obvious that the money was not enough. As he passed by a supermarket, he already had an idea in mind. When night fell, Carson found a park with heavy foot traffic. He set up a stall by the roadside. It turns out he had just bought paper and pens to draw talismans to sell for money. Passing elderly people felt incredulous. Nowadays, even students are coming out to deceive and swindle people. Carson shrugged indifferently. He believed that there would always be 1 or 2 discerning individuals in the vast sea of people. A hand reached out to the talismans on the stall. What can these talismans do? Beauty, named Kinsley, has a subtle elegance mixed with a hint of nobility. She turned out to be 3 times more beautiful than Anna. Carson picked up a talisman proudly and introduced, "Calm the mind and awaken the brain, expel evil and remove misfortune. Stabilize the home, calm the wind, strengthen the body, and promote health." Upon hearing, "Calm the mind and awaken the brain," Kinsley paused for a moment, with a hint of anticipation flashing through her beautiful eyes. She suddenly approached Carson and asked, "If someone is confused and often rambles incoherently, to the point of not recognizing even their closest ones, can your talisman cure them?" Carson pointed to the talisman on the far left. In modern medicine, it is explained as neurasthenia. The calming spirit talisman is most suitable for that. Kinsley picked up the calming spirit talisman and asked how much it costs. Carson waggled his finger, teasingly keeping the price a mystery. "Just to be clear, it won't work if you don't believe." Kinsley, without any hesitation, said he believed him. Carson then said the calming spirit talisman is 30,000, the purifying spirit talisman is 20,000, and the rest is 10,000. His words had just finished when he spoke. Suddenly, a short-haired woman appeared from the side. She yelled at Carson, 30,000! Why don't you go rob it? Then Layla started lecturing Kinsley. How can you believe in this kind of scam to make money? Kinsley understood that her friend made sense, but she still wanted to buy it and give it a try, because her grandma's condition can't be delayed any longer. Later, Kinsley directly transferred the money to Carson as a gesture of her filial piety. He gave her the rest of the talismans and told her to put them on the patient's forehead when she goes back. Just shout, "Start," and that's all you need to do. Kinsley increasingly felt that Carson was somewhat mysterious and inscrutable. She smiled and thanked him. Next to Layla, Layla was full of disdain. She threatened Carson that if the talisman didn't work, she would find him and deal with him no matter where he hid. With the money, Carson quickly rented a house near the school. As soon as he moved in, he wasted no time in starting to cultivate. The scene shifts to the bedroom of the Kim family villa. Kinsley's grandma is lying on the bed. Seated on the chair next to her is Kinsley's grandpa. At this moment, Kinsley enters the bedroom and asks about Grandma's condition. Kim grandpa sighed and said that he's afraid Grandma's condition may not hold up much longer. Upon seeing this, Kinsley handed the purchased talisman to Grandpa, hoping to give it a try for Grandma. Kim grandpa's expression dimmed as he sighed. He did not believe in such things. Kinsley is eager to save Grandma. She begged Grandpa to let her give it a try. The elderly person couldn't bear to refuse and reluctantly agreed. Kinsley slowly walked to the bedside. She gently placed the calming spirit talisman on Grandma's forehead. She followed Carson's instructions and, snapping her fingers, shouted, "Start!" But nothing unusual happened. Grandma continued to sleep peacefully. Kim grandpa let out a helpless sigh again. A wave of disappointment surged in Kinsley's heart. Seeing her granddaughter looking so aggrieved, Kim grandpa gently comforted her. At that moment, the talisman suddenly started burning on its own. Then it turned into several strands of golden light and drilled into Grandma's brow. A faint and aged voice of Grandma rang out. The grandfather and grandson both turned their heads to look at the bed. I saw Grandma slowly sitting up. She was murmuring Grandpa's name, Brooks. Kinsley quickly leaned in front of Grandma to turn sorrow into joy. "Grandma, do you still recognize me?" Grandma said, somewhat surprised. "You are my granddaughter. How could I not recognize you?" Kim grandpa was so excited that he was shaking all over. He shouted, "Hurry, go get Dr. Lin over here." Dr. Lin quickly came to check on Grandma. Suddenly he let out a gasp. "Miracle, this is truly a miracle. Grandma has already recovered." The grandfather and grandson finally feel relieved. However, Grandpa seems to be thinking about something. After Dr. Lin left, Kim's grandfather carefully asked Kinsley about the process of buying the talisman. Later, Grandpa became unusually serious. He instructed Kinsley to use all their resources to find out Carson's background. He wanted to personally visit this mysterious high school student. The majestic immortal sovereign also had to bow down to reality. After all, the spiritual energy on Earth is too scarce. Carson picked up his phone and stared blankly at it, because his mom should be calling in a while. Sure enough, his mom, Caroline, had already called. The phone was connected and Mom's voice came through. "Carson, come to the airport by car right away. Come with me to Beijing to attend your grandma's funeral." After 600 years, Carson heard Mom's voice again. He was stunned, feeling a mix of emotions. After a brief moment of silence, he replied to Mom and then hung up the phone. On the way to the airport, he recalled Mom's past. Mom, Caroline, originated from the Li family, one of the 6 major super families in Beijing. She was expelled from the family for marrying a commoner father. Nevertheless, his parents did not give in to despair. Instead, they both made achievements in their respective fields. But in the eyes of the Li family members, Carson is a complete outsider and is even considered a disgrace by the Li family members. However, he still has some utility value, being used as a marriage tool to form a union with the second-rate Yin family. Facing the upcoming hardships, Carson has no fear at all, but instead, there is a faint sense of anticipation. The mature and dignified woman in the airport lounge is none other than Carson's mother, Caroline. When Carson saw his mom from his memory, he suddenly had the urge to cry, but he suppressed it instantly. He happily shouted, "Mom," towards Caroline. He walked up to Mom and said to her again, "Mom, you look even more beautiful after not seeing you for a few months." Mom, who was originally feeling down, immediately laughed because of him. Mom instructed him to kowtow to Grandma more times when they arrived in Yanjing. Then the two went through security check. 40 minutes later, the plane broke through the clouds and fog, heading towards Yanjing. The villa complex located in the suburbs of Yanjing in front of you. It is the stronghold of the Li family. The entrance of the Li family leader's residence is already filled with various top-notch sports cars. The mother and son are currently standing in front of the gate. On both sides of the gate are a pair of couplets. "A lifetime of simplicity leaves a model for others. Half a life of hard work spreads a virtuous influence." Housekeeper Rowan, in charge of welcoming guests, looked embarrassed and glanced at Caroline. "How come you are here?" Carson looked at him in embarrassment and guessed that the Li family did not welcome them. Caroline retorted, "How could I not come to send my mother off on her final journey?" Rowan immediately whispered to her that this condolence visit might face strong resistance. However, Caroline believed that a daughter mourning her mother was only natural, and even the emperor himself could not stop her. In Rowan's sigh, Caroline took her son's hand and strode quickly into the house. Remembering how Carson, from a previous lifetime, was intimidated by the hostile glares upon entering the Li family. And now, the entire Li family appears as insignificant as ants in his eyes. In the main hall, a crystal coffin is quietly displayed. Sitting on the high platform is Dawson, the current family leader of the Li family. However, when he saw his daughter and grandson, he displayed a face of indifference. Carson, Emmett's maternal uncle, raised his eyebrows and asked unkindly, "Why are you here?" Caroline felt that he was obviously picking a fight and replied coldly, "Since you call me sister, do you still need to ask such a childish question?" Emmett couldn't come up with a rebuttal for a moment. Beside him, second maternal Uncle Cohen could only snort coldly to express his dissatisfaction. However, considering sibling affection, Emmett still made way for Caroline. But when Carson tried to walk over, he was stopped by his maternal uncle. The second maternal uncle then said that this outsider could not enter. Caroline was very angry when she saw this. "Carson is my son. He is the grandson of the mother. How can he become an outsider? Are your 3 sons and 1 daughter also considered outsiders?" Cohen responded with resentment and gritted teeth. "Without being listed in the family genealogy, one is considered an outsider. With me around, he can forget about stepping into the ancestral hall even half a step." Seeing the brother and sister at loggerheads, Carson's maternal Aunt Lily hurriedly stepped forward to mediate. She repeatedly advised Caroline to calm down. Emmett glanced at his father above. Caroline could only grit her teeth and give in. Then she touched Carson's face apologetically, letting him accompany their beloved grandmother to the gate of the funeral parlor, seeing her off on her final journey, as he had cared for her since childhood. Carson knelt without hesitation in front of the funeral parlor gate and kowtowed heavily 3 times to their grandmother. In the evening, Colt, the son of the maternal uncle, asked Caroline to rest first and took charge of arranging Carson's accommodations. Caroline originally didn't want to bother with all this trouble, but he used the excuse of following the instructions passed down from the older generation that etiquette must not be neglected. Caroline was left speechless by this. Carson signaled to Mom not to worry. Colt saw the plan working out, and a sinister smile crept onto his lips. Colt kept walking forward with Carson. Carson knew that they were actually heading to a warehouse. Moreover, in his previous lifetime, he had been locked up by the younger generation of the Li family, and almost beaten to death there. As they reached the front of the warehouse, Colt finally didn't have to pretend anymore. Carson deliberately asked, "Is the Lee family so poor that they can only offer a warehouse for guests to stay in?" Colt casually threw the warehouse key on the ground. "It's already a favor to let you stay in the warehouse." He dropped these words and turned around to leave. But what he didn't know was that Hell's demons were waiting for him. The Grand Immortal Sovereign is about to play the game of playing dumb to catch a thief. Late into the night, Colt and a few younger members of the Lee family are heading towards the warehouse where Carson is located. Colt took out another key to the warehouse and handed it to a young member of the Lee family, asking him to open the gate. At the moment the door was opened, Carson's voice was heard saying, "Since you're here, come on in." The two young men in front immediately drew iron rods from their waist. Colt followed closely behind. After they walked in, the two men in front were both stunned. I saw Carson sitting calmly in a high-back chair with his fingers crossed. He had a playful smile on his face. "What are you trying to do?" he asked. Colt walked up to Carson disdainfully and chuckled. "I'm going to make you know the consequences of insulting me." He then ordered these ignorant youngsters to start fighting. He specifically reminded them not to kill, just to teach a lesson. Carson quietly watched as they approached. He suddenly threw a lightning-fast punch and followed it with a kick. It only took a few seconds. The people rushing towards him were already taken down on the ground. Colt obviously did not expect this situation. Carson brushed off the dust on his shoulder. He couldn't even be bothered to look at Colt properly. However, Colt surprisingly didn't back down. He even went on to praise Carson with a few words. Then, a powerful aura suddenly burst out from him, and he shamelessly declared that he would show Carson what true strength is. Carson was slightly stunned. He thought to himself, "Is that spirit power? No, it's too weak. It can only be barely called spiritual energy. Could it be that there are cultivators on Earth now?" The two people who were beaten up at this time looked at Colt with admiration. They didn't expect Colt to be a martial artist. It seems that he should have cultivated to great achievement in the outer realm. Upon hearing this, Carson was somewhat confused. What do martial artist and great achievement in the outer realm mean? Before he could think further, Colt threw a punch at him. Carson extended a hand and effortlessly caught his fist. Colt didn't have time to react from the shock. Carson raised his hand and threw him into the air. Then he fell heavily to the ground. Colt immediately spurted out a mouthful of blood. Carson stepped on his chest and looked at him coldly. "Is this your so-called strength? You're not even worth a hit." The two people screamed in horror and begged Carson to let him go. Carson replied nonchalantly, "I can let him go, but—" He stomped violently on Colt's abdomen, causing Colt to let out a miserable scream. Carson's kick just now directly disabled his dantian, but Colt still shows no remorse. He threatened that even if he becomes a ghost, he will not let Carson off. Carson revealed a playful look and said, "Don't rush. The real show has just begun." The scene shifts to Dawson's villa. Emmett and Bailey are kneeling in the courtyard, crying. Behind them, Colt lies unconscious on a stretcher covered in blood. Dawson asked them with a dark expression on his face what happened. Emmett gritted his teeth and squeezed out a sentence. "Father! Colt had his dantian messed up by that bastard." Dawson's veins bulged in anger all of a sudden. How dare that little animal lay hands like this? He immediately had Cohen bring the mother and son over. Meanwhile, Carson had already arrived here. "No need, I have already arrived." All the family members immediately cursed at him non-stop. Even Cohen felt that this guy had a lot of guts. Lily was amazed and open-mouthed, finding it hard to believe that he dared to come alone. Bailey suddenly stood up. She gave Carson a stern scolding. "Colt is your own cousin. How can you bear to raise your hand against him?" At this moment, Emmett also glared angrily at Carson. Dawson finally spoke. He knelt down. Carson looked at the so-called grandfather with a smirk, unmoved. Dawson shouted again, Kneel down, Carson coldly retorted. What's wrong with acting upright in my whole life, bowing to heaven and earth? When he said this, it once again aroused the anger of the Lee family member. Emmett couldn't help but curse. You beast, as a Lee family member, you actually dare to treat your own clansman, your cousin, so badly. And you don't even admit your mistake. Carson replied nonchalantly. Lee family member, now you guys are willing to acknowledge me as a Lee family member. I don't care. Emmett could only kneel on the ground once again and plead. Father Dawson, you have seen it all. This brat is disrespectful and refuses to admit his mistake. Please help Colt. Dawson suddenly said, Family law. Upon hearing family law, every member of the Lee family couldn't help but show fear. Lily couldn't help but worry for him. Emmett and Bailey, on the other hand, cursed him in their hearts, thinking that he deserved it. At that moment, Carson's mom arrived, calling out to her older brother. Carson is not a ruthless person. There must be some misunderstanding in this situation. Misunderstanding. Your nephew is lying here covered in blood with his life hanging in the balance. You tell me it's a misunderstanding. Caroline anxiously turned to look at Carson, hoping to hear her son explain the misunderstanding. Carson, on the other hand, asked her, Mom, do you think those people will believe my explanation? Caroline knows the cruelty of family law. She believes in the truth of justice prevailing. She wants Carson to speak up and let the people present judge the situation. Carson somewhat helplessly scratched his head. His mom still harbors illusions about the Lee family member. But he can't ignore his mom's words. Carson suddenly looked toward the Lee family boy he had punched before. He dragged him out with one hand. He followed him and threw him on the ground with a wave of his hand. Let him speak for me and tell the whole story as it happened. He saw everything clearly. Lee family member was suddenly stunned. He clearly knew that the kid was in cahoots with Colt. How could he possibly talk? Even Dawson couldn't understand what Carson was up to. Carson stepped forward, with an irresistible air of authority in his gaze. Tell me what you know. Speak without altering anything. Not a single word of falsehood. The young man's eyes glazed over instantly. He revealed Colt's previous plan in full detail and recounted the words Colt used to insult Carson and Caroline. The originally furious members of the Lee family were all stunned speechless. Even Emmett and the others were in disbelief. Caroline gritted her teeth in anger. Big brother, this is the good son you raised. Bailey, however, insisted on his argument, saying that his son's outspokenness does not justify Carson's use of violence. Then she deliberately brought up the matter of Caroline and Carson's father. Caroline was so angry that she nearly lost her balance. Luckily, Carson was quick to catch her to ask if she was okay. Caroline still couldn't swallow this anger. I will just ask one question. If it was my family member Carson lying on the ground today, what would you do? After saying that, she turned around and looked at Dawson's father. Would you still mention family law? Carson narrowed his eyes and stared closely at Dawson, silently applauding his handsome comeback for Mom. Let's see how Dawson responds. This is the most shameless grandfather I have ever seen. Just because Carson's father is a commoner, he treats him with such cold-blooded ruthlessness. His answer to Caroline is no. He repeatedly stated that Carson is not a member of the Lee family. Just because of the life and death of an outsider, he is not worthy of involving Lee family law. Caroline's heart turned cold like ashes as she let out a bitter laugh. Clear enough, ruthless enough. What will the Lee family do today? Caroline, referring to Dawson as the family leader, signifies that she has made up her mind to sever ties with him. Dawson became angry and roared out, "An eye for an eye, Carson should be arrested first. Colt will be dealt with after he regains consciousness." Caroline is completely disappointed. Should I say no then? How dare you? What do I have to fear? Dawson was publicly humiliated by his daughter. Furious, he raised his hand to strike. Suddenly, a hand swiftly grabbed Dawson's wrist. The one who made the move was Caroline, who Carson thought was going to slap him, to everyone's surprise. The Lee family members all shouted angrily and stared at Carson in shock. As the military district commander, Cohen has already drawn his sidearm. If Carson dares to make any sudden movements, he will not hesitate to shoot him. Even Mom, who is on the verge of breaking ties with the Lee family, is now advising Carson to let go quickly. Carson suddenly felt an extremely dangerous aura approaching. Just saw Dawson behind. I don't know when the two white-haired elders appeared, and the aura they emitted was enough to threaten Carson. It seems that the Lee family is not as simple as it appears on the surface. But his dignity as a spirit transformation realm cultivator must not be violated. Previous lifetime Carson is helpless and powerless. If Mom is humiliated in front of him again this time, he will indeed have lived a lifetime in vain as a son. Carson stared coldly at Dawson. I was the one who hit him. If you're not convinced, you can come at me. With me here today, no one can touch my mom even a bit. Otherwise, I don't mind letting someone from the Lee family to exchange words as the family leader. After speaking, Carson no longer hides. The spirit power within him suddenly explodes, with an aura even more powerful than those two elders sweeping through the whole scene. Every Lee family member present couldn't help but take a cool breath because they found out that the young man in front of them is actually an inner-realm martial artist. Even Dawson was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. At such a close distance, this kid would be unable to save himself even if he were facing a great Luo Golden Immortal. Caroline looked puzzled at the exaggerated expressions of the Lee family members, not knowing what had happened. Lily stepped in to smooth things over again. Carson, let go. How can you be so rude to your grandfather? Carson still didn't let go. He turned to Lily with a sneer. Just who does he think he is to be my grandfather? Where was he when I was born? When I was treated unfairly? When I was being beaten up by Colt's group? When my mother and I were insulted? Where was my grandfather? Under Carson's questioning, his relatives fell silent, their faces red with embarrassment. After saying that, he forcefully shook off Dawson's hand. Under his so-called grandfather's look of astonishment, he spoke again. This alleged grandfather, I, Carson, don't recognize. At this moment, the young representative of the Lee family, Lane, stepped forward. He is Colt's older brother. However, he is also a hypocrite who speaks of righteousness. As soon as he appeared, he listed Carson's crimes. He even labeled him as unkind, unjust, disloyal, and unfilial. Upon hearing this ridiculous remark, Carson burst out laughing. You seem to have forgotten. My last name is not Lee, he said. Those words may sound reasonable, but they are actually nonsensical. Lane immediately threatened Carson. If it wasn't for the fact that you are a member of my Lee family, let alone your mother's MH company, or your entire Yongchen family, my Lee family could crush you with a flick of the hand. Carson retorted. In my eyes, your Lee family is just like ants, nothing more. Lane glared at Carson, demanding that he kneel down and apologize to Dawson immediately. Otherwise, he threatened to destroy the Yongchen family within 5 years. Carson remained expressionless, asking me to kowtow and apologize. The Lee family is not worthy of it, and I can assure you the same. I will make the Lee family willingly submit to me and beg for forgiveness at my feet within 3 years. Dawson trembled all over upon hearing this, pointing at Carson and speaking harshly. This matter ends here today, starting from this day. The Lee family considers MH Company and the Yongchen family as their biggest competitors. Caroline couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Her career had come to an end and even implicated the Chen family. Carson directly ignored this childish threat. He pulled Mom's arm, urging her to leave this heartless place. Caroline nodded slightly. At the moment, all she could do was to do her best to protect MH Company. Then, amidst the contemptuous sneer from the Lee family member, the mother and son left. They settled down after making sure Mom was comfortable. Carson returned to Chai Sang and arrived at the antique market. He was prepared to buy a few pieces of jade to decorate the spirit-gathering formation, and didn't need to specifically identify and choose them. Releasing his spiritual sense was enough for him to sense the heaven and earth chi within the jade. What disappointed him was that, after visiting a dozen shops, he couldn't find a single piece of jade containing heaven and earth chi. Suddenly, he paused and finally found the treasure. This man is a spirit transformation realm cultivator with the memories of 3 lifetimes. Just now, he found the jade he needed to set up the spirit-gathering formation on the Taoist stall. Carson walked over and squatted down. He casually asked how much the pair of jade lions on the stall cost. The Taoist said 1,000. Carson then pointed to a painting of a court lady and asked how much it cost. Taoist said 2,000, and Carson was almost satisfied. He pointed directly to a glowing stone on the stall and asked how much it cost. The Taoist looked at Carson, and a hint of brightness suddenly appeared in his eyes. That is something I picked up on the mountain. If you want, I can give it to you. But you have to tell me what the stone is used for. Carson was slightly surprised that he had been so careful. He did not expect that Taoist would still manage to discover his tracks. Although the surface of this stone looks quite ordinary, it actually contains a considerable amount of heaven and earth chi. Carson agreed decisively but added a condition, which was that the Taoist told him where he found the stone. The Taoist handed him the stone generously. Then he packed up the stall and asked him to follow. After all, this place was crowded and not a good place for conversation. Carson followed behind, weighing the stone in his hand. He was quite satisfied it was enough for him to set up a spirit-gathering formation. The rest could wait for him to break through to the chi condensation second layer to make some simple protective jade pendants. Before long, the Taoist brought Carson to a residential building. After brewing tea, the Taoist asked Carson what the stone was used for. Carson was blunt. Inside this stone is the essence of heaven and earth chi, of little use to ordinary people, but possessing magical effects for those who cultivate martial arts. Are you a martial art cultivator? Yes, I revere martial artists all my life, but have never met one. I thought there were hardly any martial artists left, but unexpectedly I met one today. Taoist said excitedly, then told Carson that he found this stone on the edge of Blackwater Pond on Spirit Mountain. Although there are many stones by the pond, he didn't dare to venture deeper because there are rumors of monsters in the pond. Carson thought that Taoist had seen it with his own eyes. Taoist said that as soon as he approached the edge of the pond, he felt a chill coming over him in waves. He dared not go any further. Carson squinted his eyes slightly. It seems that this Blackwater Pond must have what he wants. Carson suddenly asked Taoist if he wanted to become a martial artist. The Taoist widened his eyes in disbelief. Can I? Isn't it said that if he wants to cultivate martial arts, he needs spiritual constitution aptitude and must do it before the age of 16? I say you can, then you can. As soon as he finished speaking, the Taoist immediately bowed to Carson and asked Senior Brother to introduce him if he could join the sect. I will always remember Senior Brother's great kindness. Carson's mouth curled up slightly. It seems that this Taoist has misunderstood. I saw him point down with his hand shaped like a sword. A corner of the solid wood coffee table was neatly cut off. The cut was extremely smooth. Carson exudes a powerful aura all over his body and says, "Cultivation is defying the heavens. Rank is based on strength, not on age." The Taoist is extremely shocked. Legend has it that inner-realm martial artists can wield their palms, like cutting gold and shattering jade. The young man before their eyes is actually an immortal. He quickly kneels down before Carson. "Master above, please accept my bow." Carson nods, wanting to join my sect. "You are not qualified yet. I will temporarily accept you as a registered disciple." The Taoist bows and respectfully responds, "Yes, I will obey." Later, Carson instructed him to come back in a few days to teach him the technique. After speaking, he turned and left. But after walking out, he suddenly remembered he had forgotten to ask the newly received registered disciple's name. Feeling embarrassed to return, he could only ask next time. The man is a spirit transformation cultivator with 3 lifetime memories. Before him lies the jade imbued with chi. He extended his palm, and with a soft drink, the jade immediately split into 5 pieces. Carson stood in the room, operating spirit power, following the guidance of spiritual energy. For pieces of jade were quickly struck into the 4 directions of east, south, west, and north. Another piece of jade is hidden on the roof. Suddenly, visible streams of air flow formed in the air, creating a mysterious and complicated pattern. He looked at the spirit gathering formation that had already taken effect. Carson revealed a smile. With the spirit gathering formation in place, his cultivation speed is about to increase rapidly. The scene then shifted to the Yin Jingyan family villa. Inside the house, a tall and slender beauty with waist-length hair was staring blankly out the window. This woman is the #1 beauty of Yinjing, Callie. At this moment, another short-haired beauty in a red dress appeared behind her. The Miss Clan meeting just ended. They decided to cancel the engagement with the Chen family. Before she could continue, Yu and Carson didn't wait for her to finish. Callie turned around suddenly and said firmly, "My future is in my own hands. No one has the right to make any decisions for me. You go get ready. We will leave immediately. But miss, it will be dangerous for you to leave the Yin family. If it's just some ordinary ruffians, you can handle it by yourself. If they are exceptionally skilled, don't we still have an inner-realm martial artist to protect us?" Serenity looked hesitant. "But will he help us? After all, you have already canceled the engagement with him by then." Callie, on the other hand, confidently smirked. "As long as we go to him, whether he helps or not will not be up to him to choose." And at this moment, all the heaven and earth spiritual energy in Chaisang City is crazily surging towards one place. This is exactly where Carson is sitting at the center of the spirit gathering formation. As the spiritual energy was nearly depleted, Carson opened his eyes. In that instant, a beam of light burst out from his eyes. Carson gently lifted his palm, and his thoughts moved. His palm condensed a layer of golden flames. This is a sign of him reaching the first layer of chi condensation and projecting spiritual energy outward. According to this cultivation speed, he should be able to step into the second layer of chi condensation and achieve spirit power sword transformation in 10 days. However, even if he breaks through to the first layer of chi condensation, he still needs to consolidate his strength. In this lifetime, he must establish a solid spiritual constitution by the morning of the second day. Carson flipped through his textbook. He remembered that tomorrow was the day to receive his report card, as well as the time for the Yin family to cancel the engagement. In the previous lifetime, the cancellation of the engagement by the Yin family made him a laughingstock. But in this lifetime, he wants to settle this account once and for all. Suddenly Arya called him. Why did Arya call me so early in the morning? Did she encounter some trouble? No, today is the grand opening of my family's restaurant. My parents asked me to invite some classmates to be the first group of guests to enjoy free tasting. We are just a regular restaurant selling home-style dishes. So, without inviting Henry and Anna, I didn't tell her either. Just rest assured and come by. I won't put you in a difficult situation. After hanging up the phone, Carson arrived at Arya's restaurant at the agreed time. She just got out of the taxi. Arya ran over and enthusiastically greeted Carson. As soon as they entered the door, Arya's mother greeted them. "This must be Carson," she said. "I've been hearing you talk non-stop this morning." Arya couldn't help but blush. Carson smiled and bowed to Arya's mom, wishing her prosperity and wealth. Arya's mom immediately smiled. "Carson, you're really eloquent. No wonder my daughter is always talking about you." Mom teased Arya in front of Carson, causing her face to turn red all the way to her neck. Arya pushed her mom into the kitchen. Carson originally planned to give the red envelope after finishing his congratulations, but now he didn't know what to do. If he gave it directly to Arya, she definitely wouldn't accept it. So he quietly left the red envelope at the cashier's counter. After pushing Mom away, Arya came to Carson's side and told him that their classmates had asked him to sit wherever he liked at this table. Seeing the intimacy between the two, Arya's admirers cursed Carson in their hearts. Grayson immediately pulled Carson to sit beside himself. Arya wanted to go check if the food was ready. Tucker stopped her because everyone was waiting to talk to the hostess. Other classmates also joined in the commotion. Arya had no choice but to agree. At this time, Grayson asked Arya to sit by him, and he moved to another seat. Arya had wanted to sit with Carson. The chance given to her made her smile brightly. Grayson raised his eyebrows at Carson, looking like he was asking for a favor. Carson also raised his eyebrows, indicating that he actually didn't need such a favor. However, the boys who had feelings for Arya looked displeased. Only two boys exchanged secretive glances. Then one of the boys casually asked, "By the way, Ryder, today is the grand opening of Arya's restaurant. What gift have you prepared?" Ryder chuckled proudly with his arms crossed. "The money tree at the entrance is my gift to Arya," he replied, then turned to Carson and asked what he had given. Before Carson could say anything, Ryder teased, "You surely didn't come empty-handed, did you? Or maybe you gave a red envelope. How much did you put in it? 10 yuan? Or 20? These insulting words unexpectedly brought about much laughter from the people. Grayson looked anxiously at Carson, but he was calmly drinking tea, showing no sign of explanation. Arya couldn't help it anymore, so she helped Carson break the deadlock. This has aroused a lot of people's hatred towards Carson. They secretly curse him as a useless person for relying on a woman to intervene. Carson put down the teacup. He finally looked up at Ryder and said, "Do you think I'm easy to bully? Are you a worthless person worth my provocation? Are you qualified? Enough, Ryder. If you continue to target your classmates, please leave with your gift." Ryder was taken aback. He never dreamed that Arya would get angry with him for a worthless person. But out of saving face, he still pretended to back down on the surface. But a trace of maliciousness rose in his eyes. "Humph, wait until I catch you. Let me show you how I will deal with you." But Ryder's insidious look did not escape Carson's notice. He actually dared to have ulterior motives towards Arya. Carson slowly placed both hands under the table to prepare for silently killing this guy. At that moment, Arya's mom walked over holding a red envelope. Arya asked, "Who gave you this red envelope?" Inside this red envelope, there is actually $10,000. The students present suddenly took a sharp breath of cold air. Arya immediately looked at Carson and asked if it was from him. Carson had to release his clasped hands. He shyly touched his head and explained with a smile that it was a small gesture from him. To ease the awkward situation, Arya's mom had to take out some cash. She asked Arya to give the remaining money back to Carson. Arya handed the red envelope to Carson, eyes filled with inexplicable affection. "Carson, I understand your intentions. Just listen to my mom and take it back." Carson no longer insisted on taking back the red envelope. Arya's mom then smiled and said, "That's right. Let's not keep everyone waiting. Let's start the meal." Soon the table was filled with delicious and aromatic dishes. While eating, Grayson suddenly chuckled. "Who was it that said Carson didn't bring a gift?" The classmates who had just mocked Carson couldn't help but look away guiltily. Ryder was now filled with deep resentment, believing that Carson had done it on purpose. He stood up with a dark expression on his face and made an excuse to go to the bathroom. As soon as Ryder left, the others began to whisper, thinking he couldn't swallow his pride, using the excuse of going to the bathroom to ease the awkwardness. Only Carson knows what he is up to now. Ryder is sitting on the toilet. He is making a call to arrange something, just when everyone is having a good time eating. Suddenly, 3 hooligans walked in, headed by a bald man with a blue dragon tattoo on his head, shouting loudly, "Boss!" The classmates were shocked, except for Ryder, who had a smirk on his face. Arya stood up nervously. I'm sorry. Our shop just opened today, and we are not accepting outside customers for the time being. Maybe you gentlemen can try another place. The three men immediately surrounded Beauty. Their faces were full of lewd expressions. Hey, there's such a pretty little girl. Come over and chat with us. Arya's mom, upon seeing this, scolded sternly. Who are you? What do you want? The bald person immediately stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Arya's mom. Are you the boss here? Yes. What can I do for you? Upon hearing this, the bald person burst into exaggerated laughter. What can I do for you? Brothers, you tell her what we're up to. The yellow-haired man next to him immediately took over. Don't you know whose territory this street belongs to? It's this guy right in front of you, Jacob, who manages this street. Understand? Jacob smirked and said, If you want to do business on this street, you have to follow my rules. Arya's dad walked over at this moment and asked them what they wanted. Jacob rubbed his fingers. My rule is to pay $100,000 a year to ensure your safety. Arya's mom immediately reprimanded. You are simply committing robbery. We are conducting legal business. A hooligan sycophantically pushed a chair over. He lit a cigarette for Jacob. Jacob sat down, crossed his legs and blew out a puff of smoke. So you're saying you don't intend to pay, huh? Arya's mom was about to refuse, but was stopped by Arya's dad. We're not refusing to pay, it's just too much. We don't have it at the moment. Less nonsense. I'm just asking you one question. Will you pay or not? Arya's mom couldn't bear it and pushed her husband away. She blurted out a curse. Are you still collecting protection money? Do you think this is a TV drama? All right. Jay made a call to gather everyone after receiving orders from the boss. The hooligan Jay took out his phone and started calling people. A group of high school students has never seen this kind of formation. Several timid and cautious classmates immediately made excuses and slipped away. Arya felt disappointed but still managed to force a smile. She reminded them to stay safe on the way. Just then, Ryder suddenly yelled angrily, Cowards! When Arya was in trouble, they ran faster than rabbits. Those who leave now don't claim to know me in the future. This person stepped forward at a critical moment and immediately won Arya's favor. Ryder patted Arya on the shoulder and said earnestly, Arya, don't worry. I know these people. I will go talk to them so they won't cause trouble for your family. Arya immediately felt relieved and said, Really? Thank you so much. Of course, Ryder also couldn't help but intentionally criticize Carson, saying, I'm not like some people who give a red envelope but deliberately play so many tricks, as if afraid others wouldn't know. Carson suddenly erupted with a chilling murderous aura. Say one more word, and I'll slap you to death. Ryder instantly felt a chill down his back. He stayed in place, not daring to say another word. Even Jacob subconsciously glanced at Carson. They could clearly feel the powerful aura emanating from him. The icy-cold killing intent bore down on Ryder, causing him to tremble uncontrollably. He thought Jacob could summon some powerful characters. It turned out to be just a few idle individuals from society. Jacob glanced at the three people. Someone doesn't want to follow the rules. What do you think we should do? Isn't that simple? What do you want to do? Ryder knew it was his time to take the stage. Jacob, this is a restaurant opened by my classmate's family. I also asked Jacob for a favor. Jacob slapped his hand on his face and sneered coldly. Ryder from the pork factory, right? Ryder faintly felt that something was wrong. However, he still gritted his teeth and asked him to please let it go. Little did he know, Jacob suddenly exerted force with his palm, slapping Ryder to the ground. I'm giving you face. Are you deserving of it? Even your old man wouldn't dare to ask me for face. Arya's mom, seeing the situation, angrily said, Hitting a child, what kind of skill is that? If you're capable, come at me. But Ryder turned a deaf ear to Arya's mom's words. Instead, he questioned Jacob. Jacob, what do you mean? Didn't we agree that as long as I step forward, you will take your people and leave? As soon as these words came out, everyone instantly understood. It turned out this guy was orchestrating it all himself. Everyone cursed him for being cunning. Arya was also so angry that she directly scolded him for being too despicable. Ryder deeply regretted it in his heart. He was really confused just now. How could he say such words? Jacob looked at the dazed Ryder with a look of disdain. You're right, I promised you, but I don't want to leave now. What can you do about it? Ryder is already scared. He kept apologizing, saying he would leave immediately. Then he walked to the door with a resentful expression on his face. However, he did not leave. He hid behind the crowd to witness Carson's fate with his own eyes. Sure enough, Jacob finally started to show his strength. Following his command, the hooligans started to smash the tables and chairs inside the restaurant. Arya's parents could only watch helplessly as they carried out the attack. But Arya remained standing in place. She allowed wood shavings to slide across her delicate face. She never took a step back. This restaurant carries all her dreams. Because her family background made her feel very inferior. She longs for a change. Hopes to one day stand proudly alongside Anna. Arya suddenly let out a roar. I will fight you. Just as she was about to charge over, a gentle but firm hand stopped her. Arya turned her head and saw Carson giving her a faint smile. Let them relax. How much damage did they do today? I'll make them pay back tenfold. Believe me. Carson's voice was very soft, but he carried an undeniable sense of confidence that infected Arya. Arya surprisingly didn't have a shred of doubt. She chose to trust Carson wholeheartedly. He patted Arya's head to show comfort. In his saddest and most helpless moments, it was Arya who never left his side. And in this lifetime, it is Carson who is here to protect her. It's almost over. A faint voice suddenly sounded, yet clearly audible to everyone. Jacob curiously stared at Carson. Who are you? You're bored with living, daring to meddle in my affairs. I am someone you can't afford to provoke. Upon hearing Carson's words, Jacob burst into exaggerated laughter. He seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. Even his henchmen joined in the hearty laughter. Carson spoke again in a calm tone. 10 times compensation for all the losses here. Publicly apologize to the uncles and aunties. I can let you go. At this time, Grayson was too preoccupied to be afraid. He asked him to come back quickly. Arya's parents saw Carson standing up for their family. They couldn't just stand by and watch this young man get into trouble. They were preparing to borrow money to help Jacob. Ryder hiding behind the crowd. He is now wearing a malicious smile, just waiting to see how Carson will die. However, Jacob did not get angry. He looked at Carson solemnly and said, Reveal your card of reliance, and maybe you still have a chance. Otherwise, you won't leave this restaurant today. Carson replied calmly, My reliance. It's myself. Jacob felt ignored and suddenly became enraged. Since that's the case, today you must at least break a hand and a foot. Carson smiled faintly. He couldn't remember the last time he heard such words, because those who used to say such things to him are all dead now. Jacob waved his big hand and said, Bring it to me. Arya's mom immediately stopped them and gestured to show that she would give him money right away. Jacob said, It's too late. Carson has taken action. He was seen strolling leisurely among the hooligans. His moves were surprisingly fast. He only took 3 seconds. This group of people has already been beaten by him and writhed in pain on the ground. Everyone, including Arya, was stunned and left dumbfounded. They were filled with incredulity on their faces. Grayson was even more excited, cheering for Carson with an excited expression, while Ryder subconsciously swallowed, showing a panicked expression. Jacob dusted off his body, still not putting Carson in his eyes. Can you fight well, but can you stop a bullet? Carson remained calm, but he was secretly vigilant. Although he had already entered the chi condensation first layer, he still could not stop bullets. Guns were still a threat to him. Suddenly he saw Jacob fumbling behind him. His palm quickly struck his chin like a flash of lightning. Jacob fell heavily to the ground. He had just climbed up and shouted his sentence. Carson's whip kick had already been thrown out. Jacob was kicked and flew out again. He was obviously seriously injured, continuously coughing up blood from his mouth. Carson stepped on his head. "If you dare to draw your gun, I will kill you now." Jacob quickly backed off and explained. "I was wrong. I don't have a gun on me. I just wanted to scare you." "In that case, tenfold compensation. You publicly apologize to Uncle and Auntie." Jacob readily agreed and said he would apologize by kowtowing. Carson then released his hold. "Then you quickly climb over and apologize." Jacob first crawled over to apologize to Arya. Arya asked him to apologize to his own parents first. Jacob immediately crawled to Arya's parents and kept kowtowing. He promised to ensure the safety of their restaurant in the future. Arya's mom softened momentarily. She allowed him to compensate at the original price without the tenfold penalty. Jacob cautiously asked Arya if they could leave. Arya said, "Let's go!" Jacob and his group felt relieved and immediately expressed their gratitude. Then, they quickly fled from here. The man is a spirit transformation realm cultivator with a memory of 3 lifetimes. After leaving Arya restaurant, Carson was approached by members of the Kim family and invited to join them. Kim grandpa bowed and greeted. "I am Brooks." Carson nodded. No need for too much courtesy. "Speak your mind?" Kinsley was slightly taken aback, thinking this person is quite rude. Although he was invited by Grandpa, it's not common for a guest to take the lead. He didn't even bother to look at the top-grade Da Hong Pao that Grandpa brewed for him. He asked Grandpa to speak frankly. Kinsley had never seen such an arrogant person. Even Kim Grandpa was a little embarrassed. However, Brooks quickly recovered. "Carson is quick-witted. In that case, I won't be polite anymore. First of all, thank you for talisman curing my wife's stubborn illness for many years." Carson directly waved his hand to interrupt him. "You buy what I sell, we owe each other nothing. Let's talk about the second matter. I would like Carson to see if he can cure the illness on my body. This is the real reason you asked me to come, right?" "Yes, I made you laugh. You are giving your all now. Throw a punch and let me see Brooks' reaction." He didn't understand Carson's intentions, but he did it anyway. He only saw him stand up and take a deep breath. A strong aura suddenly burst out from his body. He threw a punch into the void. The powerful force of the punch made a sound of breaking through the air. Carson didn't expect that this old guy turned out to be an inner-realm martial artist. But he has already diagnosed his illness. "I understand now. You can be cured with an essence-nourishing pill." Brooks was overjoyed after hearing this. This illness has troubled him for decades. He has seen many famous doctors, but made no progress. He immediately promised that as long as he could be cured, he would be willing to donate half of his wealth to the Kim family. Kinsley on the side, however, had doubts and hurriedly tried to stop him. She looked at Carson and said, "Aren't you being too reckless?" Carson was not angry when questioned, and he explained, "Actually, it's not an illness on your body, but due to the imperfect cultivate technique. The meridians have been congested for years. In addition, you also suffered internal injuries in your early years that have not healed, leading to your current condition." Brooks nodded in a panic. Yes, Carson is absolutely right." Hearing Grandpa personally admit it, Kinsley had nothing more to say. Carson continued, "However, if you want to be cured, you must give up practicing martial arts, otherwise you will continue to fall ill in the future. Are you willing to do so?" Kim Grandpa was struck as if by thunder. Asking him to give up martial arts was even more difficult than asking for his life. But the thought of the pain and suffering from the onset of illness was unbearable to him. This made him feel conflicted. Carson did not push him either. After all, having witnessed the wonders of martial art, who would willingly go back to being an ordinary person? After a long time, Brooks sighed helplessly. I am already 72 this year, and don't have many good years left. The family business has also saved up a lot. I happened to obtain that incomplete martial art technique by chance, which ended up creating such a huge Kim family. I should have been content long ago. I am willing to give up martial art, and only ask you to cure the pain and illness in my body. All right, but you can skip the family estate. I only need 1 million as the cost for the essence nourishing pill. Send someone to collect it in a few days. Why wait a few more days? Can't we do it now? Such a miraculous pill surely needs time for Carson to prepare. The essence nourishing pill is not a rare pill. I just need to prepare the materials. I don't know what materials Carson needs. I'll order someone to procure them right away. Later, Carson wrote down the needed items on a list and handed it to Kim. Grandpa Kim looked at it and said it would take 2 days to gather everything. Carson wasn't in a rush either. He told him to collect everything and then give him a call. Carson suddenly remembered something. How much do you know about the martial arts world? I don't know much about it. After all, my ability to cultivate martial arts relies on that incomplete cultivating technique. Are there still ancient martial arts sects around? Yes. Although I don't know exactly where their sects are, they certainly exist and have a long heritage. Carson asked him to talk first about the martial arts world. Perhaps the Lee family has some connection with those ancient martial arts sects. The martial arts world divides the strength of martial artists. There are a total of 4 major realms known as the martial art 4 realms. They are the outsider realm, inner realm, transformation realm, and the legendary divine realm. Each realm is further divided into 3 subrealms: minor mastery, major mastery, and pinnacle. Once you reach the transformation realm, you will be honored with the title of martial art grandmaster. Martial art grandmasters are rare. Each one represents a powerful figure in their own right. They are the pinnacle existence in the martial arts world today. As for the divine realm, there hasn't been anyone emerging in the past century. After listening to Brooks's narration, Carson asked him which realm it was. Brooks proudly expressed that he is an inner realm major mastery martial artist. He has been undefeated in solo battles for many years. Carson made a silent comparison. He is probably at the inner realm pinnacle now, not far from the transformation realm. However, this is just a classification of power levels, not a reflection of actual strength. Therefore, he is not afraid of the transformation realm grandmaster. But if he encounters the legendary divine realm, he will be in some danger. He must quickly improve his strength now. Early the next morning, Carson arrived at school. Because today was the day to pick up report cards. It was also the day for the Yin family to cancel the engagement. If the Yin family dares to treat him like they did in the previous lifetime today, he doesn't mind making sure they can never return to Yinjing. Today is the last day of the first semester of senior year. The atmosphere in the class is very relaxed. Carson just entered the classroom. Henry's henchman Luca taunted him with a sneer. "Oh, isn't this Mr. Carson? You didn't even take the exam. Yet, here you are, shamelessly picking up your report card." Carson simply ignored Luca and quietly sat down, waiting. Arya found Carson, who had suddenly become quiet, even more handsome. Anna glanced at Carson, her eyebrows lightly furrowed, wondering what he was thinking. Henry crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking disdainful at Carson. At this moment, Teacher Piper walked in holding the report cards. Some are joyful while others are worried upon receiving their report cards. When Anna received her report card, Teacher was beaming with joy, because she ranked 2nd in the class and 9th in the whole school. When Teacher handed Henry his report card, she couldn't stop smiling. Henry is 1st in the class and 3rd in the whole school. Hopefully, you can achieve the top spot in both before graduation. The entire class was filled with astonishment in an instant. But when the teacher read Carson's name, her expression became extremely ugly, and she trembled with anger. Carson is the second to last in the class, and last in the whole school. You are the first student in the history of Chaisang High School to hand in a blank exam paper. As soon as her voice fell, the whole class burst into laughter. However, 2 male classmates who went to Aria restaurant last night did not join in the laughter. After all, they had witnessed Carson's power and believed that he didn't care about grades. At that moment, class leader Amelia pointed at Carson and scolded. "Carson, you are simply the biggest disgrace of our class. You are lowering the average score of the whole class." Carson coldly said, "You are really annoying. Can you please shut up?" "What did you say? Say it again." Carson repeated, "You are very annoying." "Teacher, Carson bullies me." "Carson, do you need to apologize to the class leader?" "I don't think I've done anything wrong. It was my fault to give up the exam, but I have reasons that I can't say. If you give me another chance, I don't think I will perform worse than the class leader." He said his grades are even better than the class leader's. Am I hearing correctly? Carson obviously cannot retake the midterm exam. However, I happen to have a practice exam on hand. You and the class leader can have a quick comparison now. Whoever loses should apologize first. The whole class was in an uproar instantly. This is because the difficulty level of the practice exam questions is 10 times harder than what they have been tested on. Amelia looked at Carson contemptuously. "Do you dare? If you don't, apologize to me right away. Don't make a fool of yourself." "There is nothing I wouldn't dare to do in this world." Under the arrangement of the teacher, the two began answering questions with a time limit of 1 hour. Amelia frowns from time to time. Presumably, the exam paper is indeed very difficult. However, Carson is relaxed and writes with expertise. This has puzzled and surprised many people. Luca looked unhappy. He thought this person must be answering questions randomly. Only Arya was eagerly awaiting the results. Anna was somewhat surprised, but still did not believe Carson. Henry, on the other hand, ignored it completely. He knew better than anyone else that Carson was bound to lose this competition without a doubt. Carson suddenly stopped writing half an hour later. He put the exam paper on the podium and asked, "How was the winter break this year?" "Starting from tomorrow until the 16th of next month," Carson said. "Got it," then turned around and prepared to leave the classroom. Suddenly, Amelia stood up abruptly and yelled at him. "Stop! You gave a bunch of nonsense answers, and now you want to run. Apologize to me." "I have finished the exam paper. You can take a look now." The teacher couldn't help but be surprised. Although she didn't believe deep down that Carson had finished the exam paper, she felt that Carson didn't sound like he was lying. Piper picked up Carson's exam paper. She looked at it carefully until she finished reading it. Piper was completely stunned, because the entire exam paper was actually all correct. Now those who were making fun of her were all thoroughly embarrassed. Arya was so happy that she almost jumped up. Amelia snatched the test paper from the stunned Piper and started to read it. After reading it, she sat down dispiritedly. A look of defeat filled her face. "If Carson is worthless, then I am even more so," she thought to herself. Carson, with his back to everyone, smirked. "My abilities are beyond the comprehension of you mere mortals," he said before leaving the classroom gracefully. But just as he stepped out of the classroom, trouble came knocking on his door. The group of aunties exerted themselves, twisting their enchanting figures while constantly shouting, "Carson, we must cancel the engagement." This scene completely baffled Carson. Suddenly, someone called a halt to the aunties. Carson frowned and looked at the person. "Who are you?" "I represent the Yin family, and my cousin and I officially cancel the engagement with you." Carson was completely dumbfounded, because in the previous lifetime, it was not like this. Could it be that history has changed due to his own rebirth? "Who are you? Are you sure you can represent the Yin family?" "My name is Atlas." I have already brought up what I needed to. I have other matters to attend to, so you don't need to detain me." After speaking, Atlas handed a thick stack of banknotes to the leading auntie. The aunties who received the money kissed a banknote and shouted towards Atlas without forgetting, "Young man, there will be more good things like this in the future. Remember to come find me, okay?" Carson chuckled helplessly. The Yin family unexpectedly still has such a character. However, he quickly figured out the intention behind Atlas's actions. At this moment, Anna ran over from behind and called out to Carson. Carson asked casually, "Do you have something to say?" Anna's heart tightened. The previous Carson was not like this towards her. She couldn't understand why he suddenly became so indifferent. She could only suppress her dissatisfaction and approach Carson, whispering, "My mom asked me to inquire about where you've been these past few days. She's worried since you haven't visited our home. I've rented a house outside. I won't trouble you all anymore," Carson said lightly before turning around and walking away. Anna stomped her foot in anger. But Anna's pride prevented her from catching up. She stood there blankly, feeling a surge of disappointment. And everything that had just happened was seen by Henry, who was hiding in the shadows. In his heart, he had already begun to brew ideas on how to retaliate against Carson. As for the farce of "cancel the engagement," stirred up by Atlas earlier, the Yin family never actually wanted to cancel the engagement. It was deliberately acted out to be seen by a member of the Lee family who was lurking in the shadows. Carson, of course, also saw through their intentions. The Yin family simply valued his identity as an inner-realm martial artist. They did not want to offend the Lee family, but the Lee family is not foolish. Carson is very curious about how the Lee family will respond. The news of the "cancel the engagement" incident spread quickly to Dawson's ears. Emmett quietly watched Dawson, waiting for instructions. Dawson regretted deeply at this moment. If he hadn't fallen out with Caroline back then, perhaps the Lee family would have had another super master. The Lee family could have become the leader among the 6 super families. But now everything is too late. Carson has become a formidable opponent with great potential. The attitude of the Yin family has already proven this. After a long time, Dawson sighed. He set aside the matters concerning the Yin family for now. In any case, they are still standing on our side, the Lee family, at least on the surface. But we absolutely cannot give Carson time to grow. Let's start by dealing with MH Company and the Yongchen family. Seize the opportunity while Carson is not yet fully developed. We must eliminate all his sources of help. I will go do it right away. Carson also cultivated in the spirit-gathering formation for the whole night. Caroline called him as soon as it was light outside. "What's the matter, Mom?" "Magnolia said you rented a house outside. When did this happen? Where did you get the money from? What do you plan to do?" Faced with Mom's soulful questioning, Carson could only come up with a random excuse, saying that he was learning kung fu with a mysterious old man. He found it inconvenient to stay at Anna's place. Although he managed to fool her for the time being, Mom still asked him to inform the Anna family to avoid misunderstandings. Caroline referred to Magnolia as Anna's mother. Although Carson detested this woman's true nature, Anna's father always took great care of him. He still needs to be accountable to this uncle. He arrived at Anna's villa around noon. Anna was surprised that Carson came back today. Carson said expressionlessly that Magnolia asked him to come for dinner. He walked in upon hearing the commotion outside the door. Magnolia poked her head out of the kitchen and greeted Carson warmly. Carson nodded. He sat down on the sofa without any hesitation. Anna frowned slightly. She couldn't help but compare him with the Henry in her heart. She felt that even though Carson had changed a lot, he still lacked manners. David then walked out of the study. He smiled at Carson and said, "Carson, you're here." Carson immediately stood up politely and greeted him. Anna raised her head slightly, a hint of confusion flashing in her eyes. She felt that Carson treated his father very differently than he treated her and her mother. David and Carson caught up with each other. Magnolia had already filled the table with food. During the meal, Magnolia asked Carson why he wanted to rent a house. David was surprised. "Did Carson move out?" Magnolia gave him a disdainful look. "You are always out all the time. When have you cared about things at home?" David, feeling guilty, chuckled awkwardly and decided to no longer meddle. Carson was simply too lazy to explain, saying he had already made up his mind and didn't want to discuss it further. Anna frowned and glared at him. "Carson, please watch your attitude." Magnolia didn't really think much about it. She thought it was just a quarrel between the two of them. The doorbell rang at this time. Anna suddenly stood up and said it might be Daisy coming to find her. They had agreed to go together to attend a classmate's birthday party. Then she walked over to open the door. "Who would you choose to go on a date with among the two beauties in front of you? The one on the left is called Clara, and the one on the right is called Daisy. The two are actually here to invite Anna to a classmate's birthday party. However, they changed their minds at the last minute. They are planning to go camping first, and then go to KTV to sing." Anna asked them to wait for a moment. She went back to the room to get a coat before going out again. Anna put on a coat. She said a word to her mom, and then got ready to go out. Magnolia suddenly had an idea. Wasn't this a good opportunity for Carson to mend his relationship with his daughter? So she had Carson follow her. David also chimed in. Carson didn't want to go at first, but reluctantly agreed out of consideration for David. Anna also didn't want to bring Carson along, but was pressured by her parents' request. She gave Carson a cold look and said, "Let's go!" Carson walked behind the three beauties, maintaining a distance. Clara glanced at Carson behind her and asked who he was. Anna simply said he was a friend's child. Beauty and Carson remember each other well. Clara is a typical rich girl who always looks down on others. She is dating Jonah, the captain of the school basketball team. In the previous lifetime, she often made things difficult for him, while Daisy was the opposite. Although she appeared aloof, she was kind-hearted and always helped him out of trouble. However, after graduation, he never heard from her again. Just as Carson was reminiscing about these past events, the fault finder finally arrived. Jonah accusing Clara. He sneered at me with contempt, saying, "Who do I think I am? Isn't this the famous failure Carson who dropped out the exam?" Upon hearing this, Carson coldly glanced at Anna. This was their class matter. They couldn't have known so soon unless someone deliberately belittled him. Anna, however, remained silent. The answer was about to come out, with Jonah continuing to attack Carson. "You still want to pursue Anna? You're like a toad lusting after swan meat. Are you even worthy?" Clara also chimed in. "Anna is Henry's sweetheart. Who do you think you are to go after Anna?" Carson's expression darkened. "Who do you think you are in front of me? Are you worthy to speak to me like this?" Clara was frightened and immediately clung to her boyfriend, acting coquettishly. Jonah glared at Carson. "You need to apologize to Clara right away. I will consider forgiving you. If you kneel down and apologize to me right now, I may also consider forgiving you. You are quite brave. Then today, I will teach you how to behave. All right, let's stop fooling around. Today is Clara's birthday. How about you give in to Jonah? With your small frame, he could easily knock you down with just one punch." Daisy on the side originally planned to help Carson defuse the situation, but Anna had already stepped in. She just glanced at him with concern. Unexpectedly, Carson was also looking at her with a faint smile. This left Daisy feeling bewildered for a moment. She felt that the way this person was looking at her was very strange, as if he had known her for many years. Jonah took Anna's feelings into consideration and didn't continue to trouble Carson. He just intentionally said that his car was too small, unable to fit the great legend Carson. The following two cars also refused to let Carson get on. Daisy couldn't bear to watch this anymore. She asked Carson to come in and squeeze in. Anna was very puzzled why Daisy was speaking up for him. Clara also looked surprised and said, "Daisy, you don't have a crush on him, do you?" Daisy blushed and said, "Don't talk nonsense. We're just classmates. I just don't want him to feel embarrassed." Later, under Clara's arrangement, Carson got into Logan's car. Logan drove crazily all the way. His girlfriend next to him was excitedly dancing. It was really exciting. The car quickly entered a not-too-wide tunnel. There was a car ahead blocking Logan's way, not driving very fast. Logan kept honking the horn to urge them, but the car in front just wouldn't budge. This made him and his girlfriend both burst into angry curses. The car in front suddenly made an emergency stop. Logan didn't have time to brake at all. There was only a loud bang as he rear-ended the car in front. Logan hastily opened the door and got out of the car. With a pained expression on his face, he checked the extent of the damage to his beloved car. The driver of the car in front had just gotten out of the car. Logan cursed immediately. "Can you drive? Do you understand what illegal parking is? Look at how you hit my car." The driver walked to the back seat of the car and cautiously said to the person inside, "A child rear-ended us and even scolded me for illegal parking." Hearing this, Logan angrily walked up and scolded, "Who are you calling a child?" Just as the driver was about to lose their temper, he was stopped by the person in the car. "Andrew, forget it. I have urgent matters. Don't waste time." Andrew nodded respectfully. He snorted coldly at Logan and prepared to get into the car. Logan thought he was going to escape and shouted angrily, "Stop! You want to run without compensating for my car? There isn't even a door." At this moment, Jonah stopped the car and walked over to ask what had happened. Logan shouted and recounted what had happened earlier. Jonah immediately instructed someone to step forward and block the front road. Andrew glanced towards the car. In fact, there were two young boys who didn't know any better standing in front of their car. The person in the back seat of the car, with a cigar in his mouth, exhaled a puff of smoke. He said to himself, "I never thought I would one day be bullied by a few juniors showing off their power on my head." Bo shouted again, "Andrew, get off the car." Andrew, upon hearing this, immediately went over to open the car door for the boss. Upon seeing the man getting off the car, Jonah suddenly revealed a hint of fear on his face. He saw the tall man with a large flat-top haircut in front of him. Jonah blurted out unconsciously, "You must be Bo." Bo glanced at Jonah, looking somewhat surprised. "You little brat. You've actually heard of my name. Who are your parents?" "My dad is Benjamin. I am Benjamin's son. Please leave on account of him." Jonah appreciates Bo's great kindness and grace for pardoning him. Jonah turned around and said to a bewildered Logan, "Hurry up and thank Bo for not treating us younger generation poorly." "Wait, I told you to leave, not him." Jonah immediately looked embarrassed. "Bo, you are a big shot in Chai Sang. Don't bother arguing with us kids. It's late. Andrew is calling for backup." Jonah, still unwilling to give up, put on a smile and begged Bo, "Please, do it as a favor to my dad. Let him off." Bo narrowed his eyes. "Looks like I have been too lenient with you. Go back and ask your dad. Even if he stands here today, will he dare to ask me for favor?" Jonah dared not say another word, because Bo was the underground emperor of the entire Chai Sang. Rumor has it that there are even more powerful forces supporting him. In front of Bo, his family is nothing. At the moment when he was in a dilemma, Bo showed a cunning smile and said, "I can leave if I want. Just let those two girls accompany me for a drink to have some fun." Bo was referring to Anna and Daisy, who were embracing each other. At this moment, Bo's henchmen have arrived in a menacing manner. Logan suddenly knelt in front of Bo, begging for forgiveness. "Bo, I was wrong. I'm willing to compensate for your losses. Please spare me." "Compensate for the losses? You cost me $1 million for every minute you delay me. Calculate for yourself how much you should compensate." Logan was so scared that he grabbed Jonah for help. At Bo's command, the hooligans rushed forward. Logan sat paralyzed with fear on the ground. Daisy and Anna, pale with fright, kept stepping back. Just at that moment, a figure stood in front of Daisy. Carson's faint voice sounded. "I've got these too." Bo looked up at Carson. "Who are you again?" Carson looked at Bo with an indifferent expression, and said the same words as last time at Aria restaurant. "I am someone you shouldn't mess with." Bo suddenly burst into a cold laugh. Anna not only did not appreciate Carson, but instead thought he was showing off. This simply cannot solve the problem. Daisy showed a hint of concern, waiting to see how Carson would break the deadlock. After Bo laughed, he felt that the kid in front of him really looked down on him. He asked again who he was. "I said it, I am someone you can't afford to mess with. Can't you understand human language?" Suddenly everyone took a sharp breath, all thinking that Carson was repeatedly flirting on the brink of death. Bo got publicly humiliated twice. With a shout of anger, "Get him for me!" Two hooligans quickly rushed over. Just heard two hooligans screaming in pain. They didn't even see how Carson made his move. Bo couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. However, he still ordered everyone to attack together. Carson faced the siege of more than a dozen people. Carson's figure disappeared with a swish. Then, they could only hear the sound of fists and feet colliding for just 10 seconds. All the hooligans were beaten down. They lay on the ground, wailing in pain. More and more cold sweat appeared on Bo's face. These hooligans are not easy to deal with. They couldn't even last a minute. And the person in front of them did not even breathe heavily, as if they had not moved at all. Jonah and the others also had an unbelievable expression. They didn't expect Carson to be so awesome. At this moment, Andrew, who is Bo's personal bodyguard, wants to exchange a few moves with Carson. Bo even instructed him not to beat Carson to death. Andrew walked up to Carson and threw a threat. "I will make you regret meeting me." Carson couldn't even be bothered to look up. "Are you done with your last words?" Andrew was thoroughly angered with a loud shout. A powerful aura burst out from his body. Then he threw a punch towards Carson. There was only a loud bang. Carson didn't seem to have made a move. Just then, Andrew was spurting blood wildly and flew out. It's not that Carson didn't make a move, but it's because he was so fast that their naked eyes couldn't see him. Bo was so scared that the cigar in his mouth fell out. Andrew, however, is a retired Special Forces soldier that he paid a high price to hire. Jonah's back suddenly felt cold. Fortunately, he did not take action to teach Carson a lesson before. Anna finally knew Carson's bottom line. But in this era of competing financial strength and resources, she thinks he still can't compare to Henry. Daisy's eyes were full of surprise. This is the kind of man she wants to marry. Andrew sat on the ground, clutching his arm in extreme pain. He told Bo that the person in front of them was likely a legendary martial art cultivator. Upon hearing, "martial art cultivator," a flash of fear crossed Bo's eyes. However, he quickly regained his composure. He proposed that Carson become his bodyguard for a monthly salary of 100,000. Today's matters will end here. Jonah and the others' eyes showed enthusiasm. 100,000 is nothing. The main thing is Bo's reputation, which is where the real value lies. However, Carson had a disdainful look on his face. "Let me be your bodyguard. Are you insulting me?" Bo got completely enraged after being slapped in the face for the third time. He suddenly pulled out a handgun and pointed at Carson. "You dare to give face, and then take it away. Can you beat a gun?" Jonah and the others panicked again. Even if Carson is powerful, he definitely can't beat a gun. Carson is not panicking at all in the face of the muzzle of a gun. He just gave Bo a warning look with red eyes. "I'll give you a chance to put down the gun and kneel in front of me for mercy. I can spare your life." Others need a pill furnace Carson for refining pills, but Carson doesn't even need a pill furnace. Just now, Bo was pointing a gun at Carson with a smug look on his face. They saw Carson unmoved. Anna yelled angrily. Carson, can't you just compromise? Saving your life is what's most important. Carson still looked at Bo coldly, even though he couldn't stop the bullets now. He still had many means to quietly kill Bo before he fired a shot. Suddenly, his phone in his pocket rang. Carson answered the phone. It's Kinsley calling. Ask him when he will come to help Kim Grandpa with his illness. Carson said he is free now, but can't leave for a while. Kinsley immediately said she might be able to help. Carson glanced at Bo and said, It's a guy named Bo pointing a gun at me. I have to deal with him first before going to your place. Carson looked strangely at Bo, not knowing what Kinsley said on the phone. He actually handed his phone to him. Someone wants to talk to you. Bo sneered contemptuously. Let me hear who you can bring in. Bo had just put his phone to his ear when Kinsley's angry shout came through. Bo, what are you trying to do? You dare to offend even the distinguished guests of my grandpa. Upon hearing this voice, Bo's face turned ugly with fright. Miss, where did you hear such words? How could I dare to offend Grandpa's distinguished guests? The high school student in front of you is Grandpa's distinguished guest. I don't even dare to speak loudly in front of him. Bo trembled all over and started shaking when talking to Carson. Carson said somewhat gleefully, Can you give me back my phone now? Bo is just waking up now. He bent over and jogged to Carson's side. With utmost respect, he handed the phone to Carson, realizing that Carson was someone he had underestimated. Please forgive me, Carson. Carson took the phone without paying attention to Bo Kinsley's plea on the other end, saying that he had already reprimanded Bo and asking Carson to spare his life. Carson truthfully said he didn't want to kill anyone. After promising, he hung up the phone. Seeing Bo standing respectfully in front of him, Carson let the matter go. Don't look so strange, he said. Bo finally breathed a sigh of relief as if granted a reprieve. Andrew and those hooligans looked incredulous. Is this still the terrifying Bo that everyone feared? Jonah, Logan, and others were also dumbfounded. They suddenly felt like they couldn't keep up with the pace. After things were settled, Carson turned to Anna and Daisy saying, I have something to take care of. You two can go ahead. Anna nodded quickly. Daisy seemed to have something else to say to Carson. But she was dragged away by Clara and others who had already been frightened. Arriving at the Kim family, Grandpa Kim bowed and greeted Carson Kinsley, and Carson followed suit and called out, Carson, as well. Carson nodded and walked straight into the living room. He saw a pile of strange and exotic medicinal herbs on the table. He immediately brightened up. These are all high-quality medicinal herbs. Kinsley stood respectfully behind. She curiously asked him if refining pill requires a pill furnace. Carson countered, asking her, Whose advice are you listening to? Refining pill does require a pill furnace. Kinsley looked puzzled. Isn't that how it's written in novels? The better the pill furnace, the better the effect of the refined pill. Carson chuckled. He lifted the herbs with one hand, leaving behind an extremely domineering remark. For refining pills, all I need is a pair of hands. Carson walked into the room next to him and closed the door. In his eyes, a true cultivator refining pills doesn't need a flame pill furnace at all. He could be seen manipulating complex hand seals with both hands. A miniature version of the spirit gathering formation was set up in midair. Carson waved his hand, and the herbs flew automatically into the spirit gathering formation. The powerful spirit power triggered the heaven and earth chi to begin refining those herbs. Not long. The initial form of dozens of pills appeared. Carson drew a complex talisman in the air with one hand and struck it into the pill. The essence nourishing pill has finally been successfully refined. Carson looked at the essence nourishing pill suspended in the air, emitting a transparent glow. Carson showed a hint of tiredness. If it weren't for his rich experience in refining pills, he wouldn't have been able to successfully refine the essence nourishing pill, which is the most basic pill. With his current strength of only chi condensation first layer, he wouldn't have been able to refine it at all. Just as Carson walked out of the room, Grandpa Kim excitedly asked, "How is Carson?" Carson extended his palm, revealing a crystal-clear pill in the center of his hand. "Take it and swallow it directly." Brooks' trembling hand reached out and took the pill. He swallowed it without any regard for his image. Kinsley looked eagerly at Grandpa and asked, "Grandpa, how's the effect?" Brooks, however, did not respond. He suddenly sat cross-legged on the ground and began to cultivate. Kinsley asked Carson with a puzzled look if this pill really works. Carson told Kinsley not to disturb her grandpa and just wait. Brooks suddenly opened his eyes half an hour later. A gleam of light flashed in his eyes. He silently checked his body and immediately revealed a look of ecstasy. Not only was his illness cured, but his martial art cultivation achievement also advanced further. He upgraded from Inner Realm Major Mastery to Inner Realm Pinnacle. He quickly bowed and saluted Carson. Carson returned the salute with a nod. "Please allow me to bow to you again. I give you the pill, and you pay me in return. This is a transaction that does not require thanks." After saying that, Carson suddenly took out a notebook from his body. "As a token of appreciation for Kinsley's initial trust in my talisman, I will help you make up for the deficiency in cultivate technique. In the future, you can continue to cultivate martial art." Brooks took the notebook. As he looked at it, tears welled up in his eyes, and his whole body trembled. He even shouted out 3 times, "It's so good!" Suddenly, he knelt down in front of Carson to show his gratitude. "I have no way to repay Carson's kindness. Please allow me to kneel down." Kinsley let out a cry of astonishment, very confused. Brooks turned his head and scolded Carson for kneeling to thank him. Kinsley, although unwilling, did not dare to resist. She could only kneel down in front of Carson. Kinsley had no idea about this favor. Because once he has this perfected technique, he can pass it on to future generations of the Kim family. It will become the eternal heritage of the Kim family. Kinsley does not know this kindness. Because once he has mastered this perfected technique, he can pass it on to the descendants of the Kim family, becoming the eternal heritage of the Kim family. Carson can indeed live up to this vow within 3 years. Brooks can reach the Transformation Realm Grandmaster with this technique, let alone bowing down. Even if the Kim family erects a tablet for his eternal remembrance, it would not be excessive. Carson instructed them to transfer the money to his card. He then turned around gracefully and left. After Carson left, Kinsley quietly approached Brooks and curiously asked if the technique book was really that mystifying. Grandpa just said she wasn't a martial artist and couldn't comprehend Carson's terrifying nature at all. Brooks suddenly turned serious and said, "Pass the message down immediately. In the future, anyone from our Kim family must never offend Carson. If anyone disobeys, they will be expelled from the Kim family directly. Especially your unreliable father. Keep an eye on your subordinates. If something like today happens again, don't blame me for not giving him any face. Also, add an extra 0 to the transfer you made to Carson." After Carson left the Kim family, Daisy unexpectedly called him to ask about his well-being. This really took him by surprise. He didn't expect that she not only got his number, but also cared about him. However, he doesn't have time for romance at the moment. He must speed up his cultivation. In at most 5 days, he will be able to advance to the Chi condensation second layer. There is a call from a stranger again. Carson answered and asked who it was. A clear and pleasant female voice answered indifferently. "Yen family." "Callie, I have arrived at Chai Sang. Please come to pick me up." Carson's brain, which is capable of containing everything in heaven and earth, crashed instantly. How did Callie get my phone number? She asked me to pick her up in Chai Sang even though she has arrived. What exactly is the Yin family planning? The tall and hot-bodied beauty in front of him is Carson's fiancée, Callie. Serenity vigilantly watched her surroundings, always ready to respond to sudden danger. She now even regrets it. Went crazy with this lady. Carson appeared in front of them soon. he greeted Callie. Callie showed a hint of embarrassment, although she was not focused on looks. But her fiancé's appearance was a bit too ordinary. However, she felt something from Carson. He exuded an aura of having experienced the years. Is he still the same idle playboy he used to be? Callie was straightforward. She asked Carson to take her directly to his place. Just walked into the house. Carson curiously asked, "Are you sure you want to stay here? Didn't you book a hotel?" Callie hasn't said anything yet. Serenity hastily interrupted. "No way. Miss must stay with you." After she finished speaking, she suddenly realized her mistake and explained quickly. "I mean, staying in a hotel is not safe. Since Miss Chai-sang has arrived, you must take on the heavy responsibility of protecting Mrs. Safety. Okay, you all sleep inside. I sleep outside." Serenity looked unhappy. Just now this kid even dared to frown when speaking. On the other hand, Callie politely said sorry for the interruption. Carson is now very grateful for choosing a one-bedroom apartment. Otherwise, he might have to sleep in the courtyard outdoors at night. Serenity packed up in a few minutes. Then she glared at Carson and threatened me to go out and buy some things. "I warn you. If I find out you are bullying Miss, I will destroy you." Carson frowned and looked at the loyal maid reassuringly. "I won't," Serenity snorted. "Bad people don't write those two words on their faces. Also, before I come back, you must not let Miss leave your side. There are many people who wish for something to happen to Miss." At this time, Callie's voice rang out. "Serenity, go ahead. I believe in his character." It seems that Carson's quiet life is about to come to an end. After Serenity left, the atmosphere in the room suddenly became quiet. The conversation between the two was simply awkward. "Do you want some water? I've already had some on the high-speed train." "Okay." The brief conversation ended. The two of them were silent again, extremely quiet. Callie found it very strange. It was rumored that this guy was a haughty and arrogant playboy. He even abandoned the exam halfway. But the guy in front of her was almost unrecognizable compared to those rumors. Carson is not in the mood to appreciate this peerless beauty now, because the heaven and earth chi of jade in the spirit gathering formation is almost depleted. He must quickly find new jade. But those jades containing heaven and earth chi are too hard to find. For now, he can only go ask that inexpensive disciple. He should also teach him some basic techniques, so that his cultivation achievement won't be too unimpressive. Otherwise, it would bring disgrace to the sect. As for Miss Carson from the Yin family, she is currently at a loss and doesn't know how to respond. It seems that fate has undergone subtle changes due to his rebirth. The unpredictable future is causing a sense of crisis. Callie couldn't help but break the silence first. "Aren't you curious why I suddenly came to find you?" Carson slowly turned to look at Callie. "Why?" "Actually, I don't know why either. I just don't want my destiny to be controlled by others." Carson nodded in understanding and then fell silent. The two of them once again lapsed into an awkward silence. Callie, feeling irritated, turned and walked towards the bedroom. She couldn't help but think to herself that this guy really can't hold a conversation. Nighttime has arrived. Serenity's face was full of alertness. She gently pushed open the bedroom door and peeked out. She found Carson still sitting cross-legged on the sofa. She then snorted and forcefully closed the door as a warning. Carson suddenly opened his eyes and realized something was wrong. He slowly got up and silently walked into the yard. Then he muttered to himself, "Since you're here, show yourselves." 5 figures in ninja uniforms then appeared in front of him. One of them said, "You seem vigilant, Carson." Carson ignored him. Because Serenity heard the movement and had already run behind him, she asked Carson to protect Callie while she dealt with these few people. She then looked at the few people and demanded to know who sent them. The few people let out a series of lecherous chuckles. They clearly regarded the man and woman in front of them as easy targets. Serenity angrily shouted, "You are dreaming!" Her petite and delicate body suddenly burst out with a powerful aura. The leader of the ninjas showed a hint of surprise. Not bad. At such a young age, you have already reached the outsider realm pinnacle. The future is limitless. But unfortunately, you won't have a chance anymore. As soon as his words fell, the 5 ninjas all rushed towards Serenity. Serenity was completely unable to resist the combined attack of the 5 people. She was hit and flew back in midair. Serenity felt a sweet sensation in her throat and forcefully suppressed the urge to spit out blood as she asked loudly, "Which outsider realm pinnacle martial artist sent such a lavish gift to dispatch you all? Go ask King Yama when you reach the underworld." The leader of the ninjas grinned ferociously and launched another punch towards Serenity. Serenity disregarded her own safety and advised Carson to quickly take Callie and escape while she tried to stall for time. She froze right after speaking. Carson swiftly appeared next to her with a swoosh and punched Ninja Leader. The force of the collision caused a strong wind to blow, making it difficult for Serenity to keep her eyes open. A crisp sound of bones breaking was heard. Ninja Leader was sent flying like a torn sack by Carson. The black-clothed man sat on the ground with a frightened expression. He quickly retreated upon realizing that there was a mistake in the Inner Realm Major Mastery situation. The other 4 were instantly shocked. They couldn't believe that a young man turned out to be an Inner Realm Major Mastery. Just as they helped up the leader and prepared to escape, Carson's voice rang out like the sound of death pronouncing judgment. "Since you're here, you might as well all stay." As he spoke, at the same time, he had already taken action, instantly killing the 2 of them. 1 person was sent flying, and he took advantage of the 2 remaining people being stunned. He didn't know when he had arrived behind them. 2 gunshots rang out. The 2 people were killed on the spot. The leader, who was just knocked to the ground, was trembling with fear. He looked at Carson as if he had seen a ghost. "Who are you? Why do you care about the Yin family's affairs?" Carson looked down coldly and said, "I don't need to explain my actions to you." "Speak. Who sent you here?" Only saw the leader's body tremble violently a few times. He no longer had the aura of a living person. Carson couldn't help but look blank. He actually poisoned himself. He turned to ask Serenity who exactly wanted them dead. Serenity shook her head blankly, saying she didn't know. After all, there were too many people wanting to harm Callie. Serenity came to her senses and asked Carson how to dispose of the bodies. Carson replied without looking back, "Don't worry about it. Someone will come to clean up." The mastermind behind the scenes will definitely not allow their identities to be exposed in the sunlight. Sure enough, the next day as soon as the sun rose, the courtyard looked as if nothing had happened. When Serenity saw the scene, she suddenly felt a chill down her spine. Callie saw that Serenity's face was a bit pale. She asked her with concern what was wrong. Serenity made an excuse about possibly catching a cold and brushed it off. Carson had already bought breakfast for them at this time. He then gave Serenity an essence-nourishing pill. Serenity could tell just by looking at the pill that it was extraordinary. She thanked Carson and her attitude towards him began to change. Carson put the breakfast on the table and was ready to go out. He was then stopped by Serenity. "Later, have Miss follow you." Callie was stunned for a moment. She was very curious why Serenity wanted herself to follow Carson. Serenity scratched her head and awkwardly explained, Because I'm feeling a bit unwell. I'm afraid I might not be able to protect Miss, so I'll let Carson ensure your safety." Actually, she wanted to tell Callie about what happened last night. But she was afraid of making her worry, especially since she was injured herself. So she could only resort to this alternative. Callie, though puzzled, reluctantly agreed to it. Carson is feeling a headache as he is going to meet Disciple later with a stunning beauty by his side. It might be a bit troublesome. Others all wish they could show off with a beautiful young wife. But Carson feels she is a burden. The Taoist disciple knows that the master is coming. He has already prepared top-grade Bilyuakun tea early on. He saw the master accompanied by an unparalleled beauty, and asked with a smile, "Master, is this Madam Master?" Carson just sprayed the tea he had just drunk out of his mouth. Then he coughed lightly, and awkwardly explained that she was just a friend. Callie looked at Carson, and felt a sense of loss in her heart. Are they just friends? Talis no longer looked at Callie, wondering why Master had come. Last time I left in a hurry. I forgot to explain many things. Talis respectfully listens to Master's teachings. Callie, standing by, sees an elder bowing to a young man, which is quite awkward. But she doesn't know what to say. For a moment, she feels a bit bored. So, she decides to look around to give them some space for their conversation. The first thing she did was ask Talis Carson for his name. My original name is Kyle. I entered the Talis Temple at the age of 11. My Talis name is Kyson. That's good. Then I will call you Kyson from now on. Carson nodded. He reached into his pocket, took out a small booklet, and handed it to Kyson. This is a basic cultivate technique that I prepared specifically for you. If you can successfully enter the first layer and guide chi into your body within 3 days, I will consider formally accepting you as my disciple. Kyson knelt down, took the booklet with both hands, and said, Thank you, Master. Carson suddenly looked serious, his voice turning cold. I entrust you with this technique. Remember not to disclose it. If you defy me, I will surely make your soul scattered. Yes. From now on, my life belongs to you. Whenever you give an order, I dare not disobey. Please get up. I have already used up the jade you gave me last time. Do you have more? If Master still wants it, we have to go to Spirit Mountain and search for it in Blackwater Pond. However, Blackwater Pond has ferocious demons. It's very dangerous. I suggest Master can go to Jade Gambling Venue first and take a look. Maybe they have what you are looking for. Carson thought for a moment. The demons in Blackwater Pond are just wild beasts that have absorbed the essence of heaven and earth, gaining intelligence. But with his current strength, it is still difficult to kill them. He can only wait to enter the chi condensation second layer before deciding. Then he glanced at Kyson and asked him to arrange a trip to Jade Gambling Venue as soon as possible. After finishing the instructions and preparing to leave, Kyson suddenly said nervously, Master, I have an earnest request. I want to follow by Master's side from now on. I hope Master can fulfill this wish and allow me to serve by Master's side. Carson naturally understood Kyson's intentions. However, he already had 2 troublemakers living there. He could only temporarily refuse. He would discuss it again after returning from the Jade Gambling Venue. Although that's what he said, Kyson knew that Master had actually agreed already. Carson and Callie are on their way home. The sky lit up with thunder and lightning, followed by a heavy rain. At 2 in the morning, all 3 of them had already fallen asleep. At this time, a fierce and evil white-haired elder pushed open the gate of the courtyard. But the elder continued to walk towards the house. But not a drop of rain fell on him. Carson, lying on the sofa in the house, frowned with a look of annoyance. Obviously, he had already sensed someone had arrived. Carson was about to walk out when Serenity followed along. This time I'll go first. If I can't beat you, then you can go next, she said. The 2 of them came outside and stood under the eaves. When they saw Elder across the street, Serenity suddenly opened her eyes wide. The rain does not touch his body, Inner Realm Pinnacle. Serenity greeted the Elder with a solemn expression, bowing respectfully. With your cultivation achievement, you could enter the transformation realm at any time. What brings you here? The Elder looked somewhat helpless. I came here just to break through to the transformation realm. I don't have many years left to live. Only by entering the transformation realm can I prolong my life. I want to borrow something similar to the Yin family's little girl for a trade. I don't know what you want to borrow. If my family's miss has it, I will definitely offer it to you with both hands. She must have it, because what I want to borrow is her life. Who asked you to come? Their offer really moved me. So, I have to swallow my pride and make a move on an ordinary girl. Serenity quietly reminded Carson that we are no match for him. You need to hurry and escort Miss to safety. Carson ignored Serenity's words and instead looked at the elder, asking with curiosity, I'm intrigued. What kind of conditions would make a martial artist at the Inner Realm Pinnacle interested? The elder's face showed a hint of longing. It was an opportunity to enter Void Mountain, because as long as one could come back alive from Void Mountain, they would definitely become a Grandmaster. Serenity's face was full of shock upon hearing this. Carson asked again where Void Mountain was, but the elder didn't know either. They would only tell him once he completed the task. Carson also wanted to ask who the they referred to by the elder. The elder no longer wanted to waste words, only to see his figure flash. He appeared in front of Serenity in an instant. He grabbed her throat. Serenity has always felt that there is a huge gap between herself and the Inner Realm Pinnacle. But if she tried her best, she could still withstand it for a while. But when she truly faced it, she realized that the Inner Realm Pinnacle was actually so terrifying. Serenity even gave up resisting and closed her eyes, waiting for death. Just then, a loud bang rang out. Serenity opened her eyes in suspicion. She found that the elder had actually retreated into the courtyard. He looked at Carson in shock. I can't believe you were able to block me. You've hidden well enough. Carson is also untainted by the rain. Tell me their identities. I will spare your life. Elder suddenly burst into laughter. Since I debuted, no one has ever dared to say such words to me. You are the first and the last. Elder stopped speaking, and a powerful aura burst from his body. He quickly arrived in front of Carson like lightning, and struck down with a palm in the air. Carson did not use any techniques. He only relied on his own spirit power to throw a punch. With a loud bang, their two punches collided, creating a wave of energy. Carson took a slight step back. Elder, on the other hand, was shaken back and flew out. It took 7 or 8 steps before stabilizing his figure. Elder was shocked and incredulous. You reaching the Inner Realm Pinnacle is impossible. Even if you started cultivating from the moment you were in the womb, it would still be impossible. But he soon revealed a sinister smile. However, if I capture you and uncover the secrets hidden within you, I also have the chance to become a Grandmaster. Carson replied nonchalantly. I'm afraid an old loser like you doesn't have what it takes. Suddenly, the elder slowly waved his hands in front of him. Could it be that he is going to make a big move? The elder did indeed make a big move. Is this possibly the legendary The Great Congregation of 10,000 Buddhas? Of course not. Serenity immediately recognized that this ultimate skill was the cloud-crushing palm, and the person who relied on this move to become famous in the Northwest 10 years ago was Pedro. Watching countless illusory palms about to strike Carson, he finally moved. He quickly responded by blocking all the moves with his palms. He simply relied on spirit power and speed, without even using technique. The dense palm rain couldn't even touch the corner of Carson's clothes. The moment they separated, Pedro was extremely shocked. How did you manage to block my cloud-crushing palm? Carson's mouth slightly curved up. In fact, he was just testing the waters. Based solely on the amount of spiritual energy, his chi condensation first layer cultivation achievement could at most be considered Inner Realm minor mastery. But his spirit power is qualitatively on par with Inner Realm pinnacle. Carson coldly smiled. It's time to end this. Let me show you what real martial art is. A fierce aura suddenly erupted from Carson's body. Heavenly Xian Divine Fist First Form. Mountain-splitting strike, only to see Carson's palm shaped like a knife. It transformed into a golden giant axe capable of shattering mountains and rivers. A powerful coercion greets him head-on. What force is this? What kind of martial art is this? Pedro suddenly generates an unbeatable idea. Facing the threat of life and death, Pedro's chi inside his body erupts completely, attempting to block this fatal blow. But before he could make a move, Carson's palm has already struck down, only to see his whole body split in half from top to bottom. Serenity saw this brutal scene, unable to stop dry heaving. Carson, however, felt dissatisfied. Now that he has achieved the chi condensation first layer cultivation level, it is still difficult for him to unleash the heavenly Xian divine fist. He didn't control the strength well, and he didn't intend to kill the elder, as he still had questions to ask. The next morning, news of Pedro's death spread and reached the Liu family of the 6 major superfamilies. It turns out that it was Maddie, the granddaughter of the current family leader of the Liu family, who sent out Pedro to assassinate Callie. Her counterpart, Elder, analyzed that only a grandmaster could achieve the feat of defeating Pedro, who has reached the pinnacle of cultivation in the inner realm with a single move. Maddie's face turned ferocious. She thought she could quickly kill that woman once she left the Yin family. But now it has become almost impossible because even their Liu family cannot persuade a grandmaster to act. The elder across suggested either bribing the mysterious grandmaster next to Callie or arranging another assassination while he is not around Callie. Maddie angrily slammed her palm on the table. "You must help me. I cannot let Callie return to Yinjing alive." At the same time, the Nangong family in Yinjing. The grandson of the Nangong family leader, Deacon, looked anxiously at the elder across from him and said, "Grandpa, the people you sent all failed. Please come up with a solution." The elder is none other than Eliam, the Nangong family leader himself. He sighed helplessly and said, "Callie has skilled protectors by her side. Otherwise, how could the Yin family dare to let her run out on her own?" Deacon looked grim and said, "That outsider realm martial artist won't do. Then let's find someone from the inner realm. If not, we'll look for a grandmaster." "Nonsense. You think they're easy to hire. Martial artists have their pride." Deacon started to act stubbornly. "Grandpa, I don't care. I must get Callie, otherwise I'll run away from home now." Eliam sighed helplessly. In fact, he also hoped for this outcome. If his grandson gets Callie, their Nangong family's status can be preserved. And in the Yin family hall, Callie's father, Cassius, was reporting to Grandpa Reese. "Yinjing has already been targeted by someone for Callie. Should I go and bring her back?" "No need. Those people have all been killed by a mysterious expert. Callie is very safe now." "Are you saying Carson has a martial art grandmaster by his side? Who else could possibly teach a young man to become an inner realm martial artist besides a martial art grandmaster? It seems that Carson's potential is much stronger than I anticipated. Let Callie continue to build a relationship with him." The scene shifts to Treasure Hall, the biggest jade gambling venue in Chaisang. Carson has entered the hall with Kaisen and Callie. Callie is wondering why they have to follow Carson. Can't the two of them go shopping alone? Serenity insists that it is safest to follow Carson. Kaisen then mentioned that he had sold all his assets and would focus on serving Carson from now on. Because Kaisen had successfully guided Chi into the body within 3 days, he had the confidence to say these words. Carson nodded in satisfaction. He then instructed to call him "Young Master" in front of others. Kaisen proceeded to introduce the Treasure Hall. The Treasure Hall is the largest jade gambling venue in the entire region, where the participants in gemstone gambling are wealthy nouveau riches. Carson glanced at those raw stones, and some were indeed quite good. Just then, Clara, Anna, and others also walked into the Treasure Hall. Anna is not very interested in these. "After all, this is a game for the newly rich," Lucas said with a smile. "It doesn't matter. It's free to watch. Maybe today you'll even get to meet someone from my Lin family," Anna explained in amazement. "Are you referring to the Lin family, the first noble family in Lin province?" Luca proudly confirmed, of course. Suddenly, Clara pointed in the direction where Carson was and exclaimed, "Look, isn't that Carson? What is he doing here too?" Luca immediately sneered. This guy must be wanting to try his luck at the jade gambling venue. But this is not something a country bumpkin like him can afford to play. Anna was filled with doubt. She didn't know why this poor guy was here, while Daisy was full of surprise. She shouted Carson's name and ran towards him. Carson turned around and also showed a hint of surprise. "Daisy, why are you here? Anna and I are free. We were dragged here by Clara to watch the excitement. Are you here to join the fun too?" "Not really. I want to buy 2 pieces of stone to give to my dad for Chinese New Year." Carson just came up with a suitable excuse. Luca let out a mocking laugh. "Just based on you, do you even have the money to gamble on gemstone gambling?" Her fiancé was slandered. See how Callie, as a fiancé, dominates the retaliation. Callie took off her large sunglasses and looked at Carson with a faint smile. "These are your classmates, right? They seem a bit overly enthusiastic." Luca was instantly stunned when he saw Callie, showing a face full of amazement. Even Anna, who is also a woman, was slightly shocked. They couldn't believe that there could be such a perfect girl in the world. Carson, on the other hand, was somewhat speechless. This Callie definitely allocated all her character points to causing chaos in the world. Daisy looked at Callie with a hostile gaze and said, "Who are you?" Callie's mouth revealed a strange smile. Then she hugged Carson's arm and said with a laugh, "I am his fiancée, you know. Didn't he introduce me to you?" As soon as she said this, the whole place exploded. Men's hearts break, and women are jealous. Daisy pointed at Carson sourly and asked, "Carson, is she really your fiancée?" Carson hurried to explain that they had already canceled the engagement. Daisy's face suddenly lit up with joy, and she couldn't help but say teasingly, "So you've canceled the engagement, huh?" Callie responded with a half smile. "Who said the engagement was canceled? No one can decide on my engagement except me, Callie." Luca suddenly exclaimed, "Callie, you are the most beautiful woman in Yinjing." Then he smirked and pointed at Carson, a country bumpkin who dared to provoke the most beautiful woman in Yinjing. "Carson, I can't wait to see how you die." Callie seemed to think that causing trouble for Carson was not enough. She snorted coldly, "What's wrong with that? I am already living together with Carson now." As soon as her words fell, everyone turned to stone directly. Even Serenity wore an incredible expression on her face. She couldn't imagine how Miss could say such things in public. Carson is a bit on the verge of collapse right now, but he knows that Callie definitely didn't say that because she likes him. Daisy looked at Carson disappointedly. "Carson, what she said is true." Without waiting for Carson to respond, Callie replied with a provocative look. "Do I need to lie to you?" Carson reluctantly explained, "Don't listen to her nonsense. She is just temporarily staying at my place." Then he glared at Callie and said, "If you continue to cause trouble, don't blame me for sending you back to Yinjing." However, Callie was not afraid at all. She threatened that he wouldn't dare to do so. Carson had a headache. He had no choice but to turn around and leave, letting Callie continue to fool around with Daisy and the others. Kyson hurriedly caught up and whispered, "Does the young master need me to teach that young man who insulted you earlier a lesson?" Carson just said, "No need." He then spotted an acquaintance waving hello to him. The person approaching his Bo. Carson didn't expect it to be such a coincidence today. Meeting acquaintances one after another. Bo chuckled. He calculated in his heart to take this opportunity to please Carson. He took the initiative to start a conversation. Could it be that Carson has also researched gemstone gambling? Why don't you help me with some insights? I'll definitely show my gratitude. Carson smiled, nodded, and agreed. After all, who would refuse free money? At this time, the broadcast announced the start of the Gemstone Gambling Conference. Bo immediately made a beckoning gesture. "The Carson Gemstone Gambling Conference has started, let's go over." And this scene happened to be seen by Anna. Anna immediately became nervous. Daisy, on the other hand, remained calm. "Don't worry, Carson is here, he won't dare to do anything. Please have all guests take their seats. The boss Jax from Treasure Hall is coming out to announce that the conference has officially started. The bidding will increase by at least 10,000 each time. At this moment, Bo and Carson are sitting in the VIP section, while Callie and Daisy and others can only stand on the sidelines. Bo took the opportunity to quietly introduce Carson. This fat man is the owner of Treasure Hall. In terms of strength, he is a little stronger than me. He can rank in the top 10 in the entire building industry. At this time, two strong men carried Raw Stone number 1 onto the stage. The starting price is 500,000. Chin Yong, the richest man in Mac, immediately bid 550,000. A gold-haired man followed with a bid of 600,000. This man is the direct lineage of the first noble family of Lin Province, Crew. Carson glanced at Crew and asked, "This Lin family is very rich." Bo explained that in terms of assets, they are all about the same. It's the mysterious trump card of the Lin family that makes people wary. Carson noticed an ordinary elder next to Crew and sensed that the elder is a martial artist with inner realm minor mastery. This is probably the background of the Lin family. Suddenly, a middle-aged man sneered, "This stone is just a big head. There's nothing inside." Bo then introduced this person as Dutton, the boss of Ru River Wanfu Pavilion, a local powerhouse. He has strong capabilities. He is a rival of both Treasure Hall, and Carson glanced at the skinny elder beside Dutton. Perceiving a hint of Yin energy swirling around the elder's body, it is obviously different from a martial arts cultivator. He is probably a cultivator similar to those from the undead sect. At this moment, Jax glared indignantly at Dutton. "Dutton, do you have X-ray vision now? If you want to disrupt this gemstone gambling conference, my Treasure Hall will not welcome you." Dutton didn't get angry when he was scolded. He pretended to be mysterious and smiled. "Believe it or not, you will find out later when it opens." Crew glanced at Dutton and smiled. Is Dutton implying that I have no vision? Just playing around with only 600,000. Upon hearing this, Luca beside Anna was visibly excited. See, the Lin family members are powerful with a large number of people. Although Luca sees himself as part of the Lin family, the truth is that the Lin family doesn't even take him seriously. While the members of the Lin family are seated, him standing is the best proof of this. Bo quietly asked Carson, "Carson, what do you think of this raw stone?" Carson shook his head and said it was not good. Bo immediately gave up bidding. Seeing that no one was raising the bid, Crew urged Jax to quickly cut the stone. Jax felt resentful in his heart, thinking that if it weren't for Dutton causing trouble, how could this first piece of raw stone only sell for 600,000? The raw stone was then cut, and indeed there was not a trace of jade in it. Crew was instantly filled with rage and gnashed his teeth. Dutton laughed with schadenfreude and said, "Serves you right for your loss. What can this raw stone number 2, with a starting price of 1 million, ultimately be cut into?" Dutton has once again raised his hand to bid 2 million. Everyone looked at Dutton, and he directly raised the bid by 1 million. This guy is so confident. Crew, however, seemed somewhat skeptical. He added another 10,000. Little did Dutton know that he would just give the stone directly to him. Seeing no one else bidding, Jax immediately ordered his men to cut. The raw stone was cut open. Inside, a piece of turquoise was revealed, which was valued at around 2 million according to market price. Crew glanced oddly at Dutton. "Dutton, it seems you brought an expert this time." Dutton chuckled modestly, saying, "Not at all, it's just my good luck." Bo also looked shocked. It seems Dutton came prepared. Wait for raw stone number 5 to come up. Jax was just about to call out the starting price. Dutton directly cut in. Inside is a piece of jadeite that's worth 800,000. I'll bid 800,000. This must have made Jax quite angry. Is he trying to steal the limelight? Just then, Carson spoke in a calm voice. "I'll bid 1 million. All eyes instantly focused on Carson. Luca, Anna, and others were surprised. Luca couldn't believe that a loser like Carson could come up with 1 million. Daisy gave Luca a displeased look. Carson had already said that he was ready with the money to buy the 2 stones. Luca was infuriated by the humiliation. He was convinced that Carson was a fraudster. He needed to find a way to expose him. Bo looked at Carson with some surprise. Carson was interested in this raw stone. Carson simply said, "It's a must-win situation." Dutton suddenly had a hint of viciousness in his eyes. But he put on a kind face. He deliberately said that this stone was just ordinary jadeite, trying to give Carson face and let him have it. He was ignored by Carson and directly dismissed. The crowd couldn't help but discuss it. They didn't expect a young man to dare to disregard Dutton's face. Bo stood up at this time. "If you want to buy it, then bid higher. If you don't want to buy it, then get lost. What's the point of wasting words?" Dutton clearly feared Bo and, out of respect, he gave way to Carson. But what did the elder next to him say to him? When Jax was about to announce that raw stone belonged to Carson, Dutton suddenly backed out. "Wait a moment. I can't give him this raw stone. I bid 1.5 million. Carson didn't even think, just raised it to 2 million. Dutton immediately became anxious. He jumped in front of Carson and angrily asked, "Are you really going against me?" Carson had not spoken yet when Bo angrily shouted, "Who are you threatening? I am going against you. I'll bet 3 million. Do you think I'm afraid of you? I'll bet 4 million. This time, Carson raised it straight to 5 million. Upon hearing this, Jax was almost bursting out in laughter. He wished he could call Carson Dad. At this moment, Dutton's eyes were filled with undisguised killing intent. He coldly snorted, "All right, little brother, you really have a lot of money. I'll give you this raw stone." Jax burst into laughter immediately. "Ha, 5 million? Is there anyone else raising the bid?" Cruz suddenly raised his hand. There was a hint of a smirk on his face. "Wait. He looks like just a poor student. Does he have that much money?" Jax awkwardly looked at Carson. "They suspect you have no money." Before he could continue, Bo immediately spoke up. "He is my guest, Bo. Can I afford to have less money without you?" Carson took out a purple card and said faintly, "No need. There are 10 million in this card with a password of 6 zeros. Carson's move directly stunned everyone. He was simply too arrogant. He actually dared to say the password in public. Kaisen looked more and more respectful at Carson's face. Perhaps wealth is nothing in the eyes of the young master. He totally disdains it. Jax immediately announced to have someone check the money in Carrie's account. Crew had some doubts. He quietly asked Luca, "Are you sure he has no money?" Luca assured with a wicked smile, "Don't worry. I've been classmates with him for 3 years. How could I not know how much he has?" But his words were mercilessly refuted immediately. Jax laughed and said, "After checking, there is indeed 10 million in his account." Cruz stared fiercely at Luca and exclaimed, "How dare you play me like this, you bastard?" Luca was so scared that he sat on the ground. He refused to accept this fact. Even Clara was surprised. Only Daisy kept believing in Carson. Anna is finding it harder and harder to understand Carson now, feeling that he is hiding many secrets. Callie's eyes lit up. She didn't expect Carson to be so wealthy. She must make him switch to a bigger house when she goes back. Jack smiled and looked at Carson, this young brother. "Does this raw stone need to be cut on sight?" Carson nodded. "So what was cut out of it?" The raw stone cut turned out to be a cat's eye blood diamond so big that it was worth at least hundreds of millions. However, Carson disagreed. In his eyes, it was just a gem containing the flame element chi. At this point, Jax had already seen through Dutton's trickery. He directly exposed him for trying to buy valuable raw stones at a low price. Dutton immediately became the target of public criticism. Cruz stared coldly at Dutton. "Dutton, the Lin family will remember this debt." At this point, Jax personally handed the blood diamond to Carson, promising a gift in return after the conference ends. Carson, being offered something for nothing, of course did not refuse. Bo laughed on the side and said, "Don't be too stingy with your gift." Jax responded irritably that he was not a petty person. After receiving the blood diamond, Carson immediately threw it to Kaisen and asked him to keep it for safekeeping. Daisy's face was full of admiration as she watched this scene. Unable to help herself, she whispered quietly, "Carson is a real man." Callie, however, was thinking that if she turned this blood diamond into a ring, wearing it herself would be quite prestigious. Next, no one believed Dutton's words anymore. Bo was also making a fortune under Carson's guidance. When raw stone number 17 appeared, Carson directly offered $5 million. Everyone saw Carson raise the price. They must know there is a first-class gem inside. So they followed suit and bid one after another. When the price reached $11 million, Jax was already grinning from ear to ear. And suddenly Dutton shouted directly to $30 million. In the end, stone was bought by him. But when this raw stone was cut, it turned out to be a first-class jadeite worth around $10 million. Dutton's face turned green with anger. Carson was very regretful because of the lack of money. Because that piece of jadeite is not ordinary jade, but with spirit jade, its value cannot be measured in terms of money at all. After the conference ended, Jax invited Carson and others to the warehouse of his treasure haul. After they arrived at the warehouse, they saw various types of raw stones filling up the space inside. Even Bo, who is accustomed to grand scenes, couldn't help but take a sharp intake of breath. Jax generously offered Carson to pick 3 pieces as a gesture of goodwill. Carson felt that this gift was a bit too much at the moment. Bo reminded Jax that Carson might choose the 3 most valuable pieces. However, Jax didn't care at all. Carson's mouth lifted slightly as he looked at Jax and said lightly, "Jax, go ahead. What do you need my help with?" Since Carson has guessed it, I won't beat around the bush. In a few days, I have a deal with a few friends. I want Carson to help me out. Seeing how generous Jax is, Carson agreed to help. Next, Carson began selecting raw stones in the warehouse. Callie is also very curious at this moment. Can this guy really pick out the most valuable raw stones? Carson quickly selected 3 pieces of raw stone and asked Jax to cut them on the spot. Although all 3 pieces of raw stone yielded gems, their quality and value are not high. Although Jax congratulated Carson on all yielding jade on the surface, he was actually thrilled in his heart. Carson asked Kaisen to take care of these raw stones. He and the others walked towards the door. Suddenly, Carson stopped in his tracks. Because Dutton stood in front of him and threw out a harsh remark. "You can leave if you leave the blood diamond behind." Bo stood up immediately. "How dare you blatantly rob? Don't forget, this is Chai's saying, not your Ru River." Jax also warned him not to break the rules. Dutton, however, said he didn't break the rules. It was Carson who angered Master Wong by not knowing what's good for him. Bo disdainfully said, "Who does Master Wong think he's kidding?" The thin and stooped elder standing by Dutton stepped forward and said, "Who else but me dares to call himself Master Wong?" Upon seeing this person, Jax and Bo looked shocked. They explained in unison, "Ghostly Fear Alonso!" Alonso looked at Carson and shouted for him to hand over the blood diamond. Bo dared not speak this time. Instead, he looked at Carson with a worried expression on his face. Jax took a step forward, wanting to persuade Carson to hand over the blood diamond. Carson smiled faintly and asked, "Is this Master Wong very powerful?" Jax quickly mentioned Alonso's background. This Master Wong has opened a spirit inquiry dwelling, which is said to be able to catch ghosts, drive away evil spirits, and communicate with people about yin and yang. He is known for his nickname Ghostly Fear. After listening, Carson disdainfully looked at Alonso and said, "All right then. If you want the blood diamond, you can exchange it with your life." Alonso's face turned unusually fierce after being slapped by a young man. "If you're looking to die, I'll make sure you do today." After saying that, a clay jar sealed with a talisman appeared in his hand. At the moment when the talisman was removed, A ferocious-looking ghostly shadow emerged from the jar. With Alonso's command, the ghostly shadow opens its bloody mouth wide and lunges at Carson. Jax and Bo got scared and ran away as fast as they could. Callie also got scared and kept backing away. Serenity immediately stood in front of her to protect her. Kaisen alone disregarded everything. He raised his fist and smashed it towards the ghostly shadow. But that ghostly shadow actually completely penetrated Kaisen's body. He continued to pounce towards Carson as Kaisen stood still for a moment. He quickly turned around and shouted, "Young master, be careful!" Carson remained calm as ever. He watched as ghostly shadow approached within reach. Carson formed a hand seal with his 2 fingers. Threads of thunder coiled around his fingertips. He only uttered thunder, lightly. A thunder as thick as an arm instantly appeared and struck ghostly shadow, causing it to disintegrate on the spot. Alonso saw Carson wielding thunder, and was already so terrified that he knelt on the ground, begging for mercy incessantly. How can such a villain like Carson spare him? Another strike of thunder came down on him. Alonso died on the spot. Dutton looked at Carson in horror. He then knelt down and kowtowed to Carson, pleading for mercy. "I was coerced by Alonso. Please spare me." At this moment, Jax and Bo started to flatter Carson. "Carson, you are the true master. Carson, you are like the Grandmaster descended." "I am not a Grandmaster. I am just a cultivator who knows some techniques." "In our eyes, Carson is a true immortal. Please take good care of Carson in the future." Apart from these 2 people who constantly flatter, even Callie looks shocked. She even thinks that her fiancé is a superhuman existence. Serenity, on the other hand, looks puzzled. She thinks that Carson is cultivating a technique related to thunder. Carson looked down at Dutton kneeling on the ground and said, "Since this is your first offense, I'll spare your life. By tomorrow's sunset, give Callie 50 million. You are not allowed to set foot in Chaiseng again. Otherwise, I will take your life even if I have to go to the ends of the earth." "I will obey all your commands," Dutton said firmly. Suddenly there was a burst of applause, really wonderful. I didn't expect to see the Taoist thunder technique today. It really broadened my horizons. Crew emerged from the shadows with a smile on his face. Then he said to the elder beside him, "I told you, Dutton, that loser couldn't stop them." "Right, Dane? I didn't say it wrong, did I?" Bo looked alertly at the 2 of them. "Crew, what are you trying to do?" Crew smirked sleazily and said, "Don't get worked up. I don't intend to offend a master." After speaking, Crew's gaze suddenly shifted to Callie. "I just want to invite this beauty to have a drink with me. I wonder if the beauty would honor me with her company." Serenity immediately shielded Callie behind her. Glaring angrily at Crew, she said, "Get lost." "Oh, it would be even better if the 2 beauties were together." "Uh-huh." Carson walked up to Serenity. He gestured for her to make a move, ready to see how strong her breakthrough skills were. Serenity nodded, and then her aura suddenly exploded. In an instant, she threw 5 or 6 punches at Dane, but he effortlessly defused them standing in place. Suddenly, Dane's eyes flashed red. He struck Serenity's chest with a palm strike. A trace of blood overflowed from the corner of Serenity's mouth. She took several steps back before barely stabilizing her stance. Dane did not pursue the victory, but instead sneered, "If it wasn't for Crew's mercy, I would have taken your life with that strike." Carson shook his head. It seems that Serenity's foundation is too weak. Crew saw Carson about to take action, threatened that if he dared to intervene, it would be considered an act of enmity against the Lin family. Carson looked disdainful. "In my eyes, your Lin family is nothing but ants." "Crew is furious that you dare to insult my Lin family," Dane crippled him. Dane immediately reached his hands out, forming sharp claws, and lunged at Carson. This man is so arrogant that he threw out a sentence directly. "I'll kill you like killing a chicken." Then he threw a simple and unpretentious punch. His bone shattered inch by inch, and he died on the spot. Crew had not yet recovered from his shock. Carson's cold voice rang out. "It's your turn. What do you want to do? If you dare to touch the Lin family, we will never let you get away with it. Today I will break both your legs as a punishment." "I was wrong. I didn't recognize the true situation. Please spare me. The Lin family will definitely show great appreciation." "It's too late." After saying that, he stomped and crushed Crew's legs. Crew let out a shocking scream while he regained his strength. He dared to shout that the Lin family will not let Carson off the hook. Carson just stared at him coldly. He didn't make a move. At this moment, Bo and Jax finally realized what a real ruthless person was like. Later, Carson returned to the residence with Kaisen and 2 girls, and arranged rooms for them. He finally had some quiet time. Then he placed the jade he had harvested this time on the table. With these jades, Carson will be able to step into the chi condensation second layer tomorrow. While Callie was lying on the bed playing with her phone at this moment, she was considering what excuse to use to trick the blood diamond over, thinking that making it into a ring would definitely be very beautiful. Her eyes were almost closed with a smile. Carson was cultivating all night. In the early hours of the morning, he suddenly opened his eyes wide. The aura on his body kept rising. Finally reaching the second layer of chi condensation, he can now choose a body refining technique to cultivate alongside. However, cultivation resources are scarce nowadays. He can only abandon the most potent 9 cycles golden body from his past life and choose the primordial immortal body. At noon, Serenity has already prepared lunch. At the dining table, Callie suddenly shows an unusually warm attitude towards Carson. She even helps him with the dishes and asks about his well-being. This leaves Carson completely puzzled. Serenity and Kaisen, who were sitting beside them, were looking extremely embarrassed. Callie finally stated her purpose. "Carson, can you lend me the blood diamond to take a look at it?" Carson finally figured out what she was up to. He simply ignored her. At the same time, the Lin family, the top noble family in Lin province. Crew sat in a wheelchair, roaring in anger. Lin family leader Dash sat in the main seat with a gloomy expression. Below, the Lin family members also had angry expressions on their faces, one by one. For a long time, Dash's eyes revealed a hint of ruthlessness. "Kenai, gather some people and deal with Bo. From now on, I want the underground world to bear the surname Lin." A young man in his late 20s walked out from the side and bowed to receive his orders. 3 days later, Carson and others were sitting in Bo's house. It turns out that Bo has been under intense retaliation from the Lin family these past few days. They have threatened to send experts to take his life tonight. That's why he called Carson to help out. In addition, there is also Jazel, the chief instructor of martial arts from the South Hong sect. However, Jazel looks down on Carson. His words are filled with disdain. Faced with Jazel's mockery, Carson chose to ignore it directly. Kaisen, on the other hand, was so angry that he vaguely wanted to teach him a lesson. Callie gleefully watched as Jazel, because in a while, it would be his turn to be slapped in the face. When the clock's hands froze at 9 o'clock at night, Kenai had already walked in. "Bo, you actually found someone to help. It seems you intend to refuse my conditions." "Kenai, don't push your luck. I have already given up a third of the territory. Bo is the one who broke Crew's legs. The Lin family has no reason to look for you." Bo gave Carson a displeased glance. He really wanted to shift the blame onto Carson. Jazel took the initiative to fight. Kenai took the first shot. The two of them fought fiercely for a while. Kaisen curiously asked Carson who would win. Carson asked back, "What do you think?" Kaisen thought for a moment and said it would be Jazel. Carson could tell at a glance that this person has just entered the inner realm, and their spiritual constitution is not stable. Moreover, being too arrogant and conceited violates the taboo of underestimating the enemy. He confidently predicted that within 10 moves, he would undoubtedly be defeated. Sure enough, Jazel was only punched by Kenai and was pushed back 5 or 6 steps. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood. Obviously, he was seriously injured. Kenai laughed triumphantly. I concede. Jazel looked at Bo with a forced smile and said, I am no match for you. Bo panicked immediately. Even if Jazel was defeated, what should he do? Just then, Carson stood up and admitted that it was himself who broke Crew's legs. Kenai immediately widened his eyes, because he realized that the young man in front of him was not an inter-realm martial artist at all. Carson said indifferently, Is an inter-realm martial artist really that rare? Otherwise, what do you think? Do you see inter-realm martial artists as common as radishes in a greenhouse, plentiful everywhere? I finally mastered the inter-realm at the age of 40. That really is quite an arrogant young man. Carson ignored everyone's reaction. He took out a crystal-clear pill. He handed the pill to the puzzled Kaisen and asked him to eat it. Serenity looked surprised because the pill was the essence-nourishing pill. She seemed to understand what Carson was about to do. Kaisen hesitated for a moment and quickly swallowed the essence-nourishing pill. Then he sat cross-legged and directly started to operate the technique to absorb the medicinal power of the essence-nourishing pill. Bo looked puzzled. How could he start taking medicine without being injured yet? Jazel thought Carson was just showing off. On the contrary, Kenai and Serenity guessed it as well. It just completely subverted his understanding. After a moment, Kaisen suddenly opened his eyes and revealed a glint of enthusiasm. He then knelt in front of Carson. Master, I have no way to repay your great kindness. Carson said lightly. Go, just don't embarrass me. Kaisen suddenly erupted with a powerful aura, saying, You insulted my mentor, you deserve death. Kenai's face was full of fear. This Taoist actually broke through to the inner realm major mastery in an instant. Jazel was also shocked. It was hard to accept this fact. Just saw Kaisen throwing a punch with powerful momentum. He fiercely smashed towards Kenai. The sound of breaking through the air rang out, and Kenai hurriedly defended himself. Just listen to a click. His arm broke instantly. He was heavily hit and flew out. Jazel was shocked and dumbfounded. At this moment, he still couldn't believe what was happening before his eyes. Kenai has been scared out of his wits. Without saying a word, he turned around and ran. Kaisen's figure flashed as he swiftly delivered a powerful punch to Kenai's back. Kenai was once again sent flying by the impact. The punch resulted in Kenai being killed on the spot. At this moment, Kaisen in a Taoist robe looks like the arrival of true warrior great deity. I have said that if you insult my master, you should be killed. Jazel knelt down in front of Carson with a thud, trembling in fear. Master, my dog eyes were wrong just now, and I have offended you. Please forgive me. Jazel is not stupid. In the blink of an eye, he has created a master of the inner realm. Isn't this young man's strength ridiculously strong? If he doesn't kneel down and beg for mercy now, he may end up just like Kenai. Carson ignored Jazel, didn't even look back, and casually said to Bo, If any more members of the Lin family come to provoke, tell them to come find me directly. After speaking, he and Kaisen walked towards the door. This master-disciple duo is simply too courageous. A statue of the king of the earth Bodhisattva, a piece of jade 8 trigrams, and a jade pearl. These are the treasures that Jax invited Carson to help him control. And these 3 things are exactly what Dutton brought. So Jax didn't dare to tell Carson the truth at that time. This time, Jax also invited 2 heavyweight figures. One is Wesson, the #1 person in South Ridge Prefecture, and the other is Nixon Immortal Dutton from Jia Mountain Spirit Taoist Temple. Unexpectedly, Carson also came this time. Moreover, the 50 million he promised in the past has not been transferred to him. But this time, he had the help of a powerful figure behind him. He soon didn't take Carson seriously again. Carson sensed a trace of spiritual energy fluctuations on Nixon Immortal's body. It seems that there are indeed cultivators on Earth. Nixon Immortal took the first shot. He simply pointed his finger at that pearl. The pearl suddenly emitted a blue light. Everyone only felt a refreshing coolness emanating from the pearl. Nixon Immortal then spoke up. This pearl should be a relic left by an enlightened Taoist master. It is imbued with spiritual energy that has the effect of refreshing the mind, improving sleep. When he pointed his finger at the statue of the king of the earth Bodhisattva, the statue suddenly burst out with a dazzling golden light. Nixon Immortal exclaimed in surprise. It turned out to be a Bodhisattva statue that had been blessed by an enlightened Taoist master. He then looked at the 8 trigrams and shouted, "Open!" However, nothing unusual happened this time. Nixon Immortal shook his head, indicating that he himself didn't see anything special. Dutton, standing beside him, laughed disdainfully and said that this piece of jade 8 trigrams happened to be the most precious of the 3 treasures. Then he turned to the Taoist standing next to him and gestured for Marlin to explain. Marlin stroked his beard and looked at Nixon Immortal, saying, "Your achievements are too shallow. Don't come out to embarrass yourself in the future." Nixon Immortal's face reddened with anger, and he said to Marlin, "I have never heard of someone like you either." "That's because you are ignorant." With that, he pointed to jade 8 trigrams. The originally plain and unremarkable jade 8 trigrams suddenly burst into a dazzling light like ripples of water. A gentle and comfortable airflow slowly entered everyone's body, just like a mother's embrace in childhood. Nixon Immortal immediately clasped his fists in apology. "It turns out that you are a master. I was blind and offended you just now. Please forgive my rudeness, senior. Go back and practice for another 30 years. This is a ritual implements that can nourish the body and promote longevity." When he said this, the scene suddenly exploded. Marlin and Dutton looked at each other and smiled. There was a hint of satisfaction in their eyes. Jax doesn't quite believe that Dutton is willing to part with these 3 treasures. He respectfully smiled and asked Carson to help him appraise it. Just as Carson was about to make a move, Dutton and Marlin mocked him. Carson picked up the jade 8 trigrams and retorted, "Are you really going to make me say it?" Dutton felt a little nervous in his heart but remained silent. Marlin raised an eyebrow on the side, urging him to speak up. Carson waved his hand, indicating that all 3 items are counterfeit. The scene immediately burst into an uproar. They simply did not believe what Carson said. Carson began to expose the trick one by one. This pearl is just an ordinary glass bead infused with a trace of yin energy. Prolonged contact will only attract yin energy to oneself. This Buddha statue has also been subjected to spells by someone. Instead of warding off evil spirits, it actually attracts them. As for this piece of jade 8 trigrams, there is a simple formation inside. It can catalyze the water chi contained within the jade itself. It can indeed nourish the human body. However, ordinary people cannot use it at all. The trick was exposed. Dutton and Marlin were immediately scolded by everyone pointing fingers at them. Carson suddenly looked at Marlin. "You must be fellow disciples with Master Wong. You killed my junior brother in front of me. You ruined my good fortune, but now I will skin you, pull your tendons, crush your bones, and scatter your ashes." After speaking, Marlin opened his mouth wide and took a deep breath. His belly swelled up like a balloon. Then he exhaled a puff of black smoke towards Carson. The black smoke then transformed into 6 skulls in midair. They opened their mouths and let out piercing screams, terrifying everyone. Marlin grinned hideously. "Today, I will let you taste the feeling of having your soul devoured." 6 ghost-seeking souls opened their bloodthirsty mouths and bit towards Carson. It felt as if 6 mountains were pressing down on him. Carson remained calm with lightning surrounding his body. "Regardless of the numerous evil spirits, I will destroy them with one thunderbolt." Thunder. For a moment, Carson appeared as if the thunder god had descended. Marlin's face was full of fear. "Could it be that you are the successor of the Grandmaster sect?" Carson ignored him. 6 skulls were instantly engulfed by countless thunders, turning into wisps of blue smoke. Marlin sees a thunder coming straight at him. Marlin spits out another mouthful of rare black smoke. The black shadow has actually condensed into the likeness of Marlin. It charges fiercely towards Thunder. However, the silhouette of black smoke was instantly dispersed. Thunder still came charging towards Marlin. The hit Marlin begged for mercy repeatedly. Carson ignored him. How could he forgive such a malicious person who brings disaster to the world? But Carson suddenly grasped tightly. Marlin turned into ashes under the power of Thunder. At this moment, these people respect Carson as if respecting a god. Carson's gaze swept towards Dutton, who was about to escape. Dutton, have you forgotten my 50 million? How could I dare to forget Carson's instructions? I will go back to prepare it for you right away. I seem to have said that without the money, your life is over. Dutton was so scared that his legs went weak, and he knelt on the ground begging for mercy. Carson just shouted, "Kyson, Kyson," and immediately swung a punch. Dutton died on the spot. Suddenly everyone shouted in unison. Carson's awe is unparalleled, we all admire him. Callie showed deep shock for the first time. If I also had such power, who would dare to interfere with my fate as Callie's? Later, Carson asked Kyson to put away the Jade A trigrams. With the water element A trigrams, he could set up the 5-element spirit gathering formation. Carson looked at everyone again. Dutton is dead, and his power is up for grabs. Whoever is willing to take over, I will take half of the assets, of course. I won't take it for nothing. At this time, Jack stood up with a smile, indicating that he was willing to take over. In that case, in the future, he can ask Carson to handle any difficulties on his behalf. At that moment, Wesson suddenly knelt on the ground and shouted to Carson, "Carson, I am willing to submit to you and ask for your care." This scene left the crowd stunned. However, they quickly understood the reason. They all submitted to Carson. Carson stood in the room with his hands in his pockets. A faint yet irresistibly commanding voice sounded. "In that case, all of you naturally belong to me from now on. But if I find out that anyone is going against my orders, don't blame me for being ruthless." The crowd responded in unison, not daring to disobey. They understood that from today onwards, perhaps half of the region would have to defer to Carson. A few days passed, and Bo anxiously called Carson. It turned out that the Lin family had issued a tough challenge, planning to confront him at Yin Lake in 3 days. Furthermore, they also killed Wesson. If Jax and the others do not submit to the Lin family, they will meet the same fate. Carson just said, "I understand." And his icy gaze is about to foreshadow the Lin family's catastrophic outcome. This is an extremely awesome man. However, the hooligan wants to challenge this man today. Just now, everyone had already gathered at Yin Lake, but Carson's figure has not appeared yet, and his phone cannot be reached. Just as Bo was relieved that the Lin family had not come, suddenly dozens of cars drove over. Over a dozen people from the Lin family quickly walked to the viewing platform and lined up in 2 rows facing Yin Lake, as if they were welcoming someone. At this moment, a figure laughed heartily as they swiftly dashed across the water of the lake. The people from the Lin family immediately shouted in unison, "Welcome, Foster!" This person is the hooligan Foster who is challenging Carson today. He looked disdainfully at Bo and the others. Where is Carson? Could it be that he was scared off by the reputation of my Lin family? His words had just fallen when Carson appeared, walking slowly with Kyson and 2 girls. Bo finally breathed a sigh of relief. Foster stared arrogantly at Carson. "Now kneel down and beg for mercy, and I may spare your life." Carson responded indifferently, "Are all people from the Lin family as foolish as you?" Foster grinned confidently and said, "Only the winner has the right to speak. Come at me." Kyson suddenly stepped forward and stood in front of Carson. "No need to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. If you want to challenge the young master, you'll have to get past me first. Are you rushing to your death? I'll humor you." "Don't be arrogant." As soon as Kyson finished speaking, The two men had already started fighting. They exchanged blows with each other. In the blink of an eye, they had already fought over 100 rounds. The crowd below watched in astonishment. This was just like a martial arts master from a novel. This battle continuously challenges their understanding. Just a loud bang was heard. The two people collided violently, and their figures separated with a punch. Foster was slightly out of breath, and Kaisen's face was slightly red. Obviously, they both have consumed a lot of chi. At this moment, a member of the Lin family handed Foster a sword. Foster sneered. The Lin family is not just known for martial arts, but also for swordsmanship. Today, I will defeat you with my sword. Then he performed a move called Dragon Gate Triple Waves. Kaisen threw a punch. It was the Heavenly Mystic Three Fists First Form Mountain Splitter that Carson passed down to him. They clashed their fists and swords, erupting into a loud noise. The powerful energy swept through the entire scene. Suddenly, Foster's sword dropped to the ground. He looked at Kaisen in horror. What fist technique do you have that is so powerful? My fist technique is not even 1,000th as good as young masters. How can it be so powerful? It's because you are too weak. Foster's pupils suddenly constricted. Is this young man not an ordinary person? Or is his cultivation achievement so high that I cannot explore his realm? At this point, Foster suddenly turned around, stepped on the water, and ran wildly. Carson's emotionless voice sounded. Did I let you go? Foster thought that even if his lightness skill was at the Grandmaster level in the transformation realm, he could not be caught up. But he happened to encounter Carson. Carson's fingertips condensed a beam of light sword, which with a piercing sound, shot towards Foster. In an instant, Foster's forehead was pierced by the light sword. His expression was incredulous at the moment of his death. Then he fell into the lake with a splash. Serenity looked shocked. She didn't expect Carson to be so strong. The Lin family members also looked frightened. Instantly, everyone on the viewing platform knelt down and revered Carson as their master. Carson only said to go to the Lin family. Very soon, news of Foster's murder spread back to Lin province and the Lin family. Lin family leader Dash frowned, thinking about how to respond. A member of the Lin family ran in, with a look of panic on his face. Someone threatened to kill him if he didn't go out. When he heard that the visitor was a young man, he couldn't help but feel flustered. At this moment in the courtyard of the Lin family, Carson was confronting a hooligan, while facing off against a group of Lin family members. Keith from the Lin family stepped forward and said, Carson, you do have some skills. Now, are you ready to negotiate with us, the Lin family? Negotiate terms? You've got it wrong. I'm here for the extermination of a family. He finished talking, and then kicked the hooligan he was stepping on. Keith does not believe that he alone can take down the Lin family. Only to see Carson's figure suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, all the people of the Lin family in the courtyard had been wiped out. The move just now was indeed the spirit power sword transformation, a sword strike that slays all beings. Dash in the hall is preparing to let Truid go out to check the situation. Carson has come in already. Dash is pale with fright. How did you come in? Where is Keith? Carson, you dared to be so arrogant here. Today you won't be able to leave. Unfortunately, the words of the dead do not count. Dash was thoroughly provoked, and he formed hand seals with 2 fingers. A red sword sprang out from his back. Dash grabbed the sword in midair. He executed his most powerful move, flowing Cloud 13 swords. Only to see Dash's figure elusive, his sword arc crafty and eccentric. But in Carson's eyes, he moves as slow as an ant. This is simply child's play in the world of sword art. Suddenly, Carson's fingers clamped down on his sword hilt. Then he unleashed a move called Mountain Splitting Strike. Dash was knocked back and sent flying. Carson nodded as he looked at Dash. Not bad. Taking a hit from me and surviving. You're stronger than Foster. Today's matters end here. From now on, there will be no more debts between you and our Lin family. It seems you still haven't heard clearly what I said. I am here for the extermination of a family. Do you have to be so thorough, Carson? Carson looked at him helplessly, shaking his head. Very well. Let you understand through death. Truitt, come out. Truitt stood behind Carson, bowing and addressing him as Master. Dash glared at the bowed Truitt, asking, I have been good to you. Why betray the Lin family? Truitt raised his head, a flash of hatred in his eyes. Dash, you sent my mother to the Valley of Despair and killed my father. You raised me just to continue using me. This is not treating me well. I wish for the Lin family to perish completely for generations to come. Moreover, Truitt also informed Dash about the plan to harm Carson's family. So this time, Carson is determined to destroy the Lin family. Dash knew there was no hope of survival, so he could only fight to the death. A terrifying aura suddenly spread out from Dash. His body was suspended in midair. It turned out that Dash forcefully broke through to the transformation realm, but at the cost of depleting all his cultivation achievement. Although it only lasted for a moment, if he could kill Carson, it would be worth it. Carson shrugged indifferently, showing that he didn't take Dash seriously at all. This is a man who is arrogant to the extreme, but also unbelievably strong. Just now, Dash has broken through to the transformation realm. He launched a terrifying fatal blow towards Carson. Carson still punched out. Heavenly Xian Divine Fist second form river splitting. Dash's face showed great joy. He actually used his own fists to harden against sword, seeking death. But he soon couldn't laugh anymore, because Carson's punch contained the power to destroy the world. It instantly smashed into him. With one punch, Dash was obliterated without a trace. Carson gently gasped for breath. This punch also depleted nearly half of his spirit power, and he put away his contempt for the martial art grandmaster. Seeing Carson's invincibility, Truitt was glad he had chosen the right person. At this time, people from the Lin family direct lineage began to flee frantically. Carson then used a move called Spirit Power Sword Transformation, instantly killing everyone on the spot. Carson gazed at Truitt. The Lin family direct lineage has been wiped out. Resources cannot be wasted. Can you take control of the present Lin family? As long as the young master supports me, I am fully capable. The scene shifts to an underground auction in Darkwater County, Shay Prefecture. Daisy and Carson's class leader, Amelia, also arrived here. Daisy couldn't help but think of Carson being criticized by Amelia for not being qualified to come in as a poor boy. However, in the backstage lounge, Kinsley is respectfully serving Carson tea. It turns out that Carson was preparing to go to the nearby Spirit Mountain when he happened to catch this auction. So he dropped by to take a look. And the boss behind the scenes of this auction is the Kim family. As soon as she heard that Carson was interested in the auction items, Kinsley then brought him directly to the storage room. Carson took a look. He found a dagger emitting spiritual energy all over its body, which turned out to be a ritual implements. As long as he reaches the third layer of chi condensation, he can cultivate the flying sword technique. Carson turned his head to look at Kinsley standing respectfully on the side and said, I'll take this dagger, even if I owe Kim family a favor. Kinsley bowed and smiled. Since Carson has taken a liking to it, just take it. How could I accept your money? Later, the two of them walked out from the backstage. Daisy and Amelia were both surprised. They did not expect to be accompanied by Miss Kim from the Kim family. However, this aroused the hostility of Killian from the direct lineage of the Wei family. He immediately ordered Danny behind him to take care of Carson. Danny sneered and said, Don't worry. Dealing with him is as easy as squishing an ant. After the auction ended, Daisy arrived at Spirit Mountain with her uncle and bodyguards. They came here to find a spirit herb. Killian and Danny arrived here long ago. Obviously, many people are here for the spirit herb. Danny, however, thinks the more people, the better. Because that way, he can profit from others' efforts. Everyone continued on their way. When they arrived at a certain place, they were all stunned by the scene before their eyes. They saw two waterfalls flowing into a deep pool below in front of them. A rainbow was faintly visible, shining amidst the surrounding red trees. The crimson fruit growing at the boundary between the waterfall and the deep pool is a spirit herb. This crimson fruit only bears fruit every 50 years. Consuming it can directly help martial artists and cultivators to break through one level. Danny's eyes suddenly revealed a hint of greed. The deep pool is strangely dark as ink. Everyone dared not go into the water. After whispering a few words to Killian immediately walked to the front of the crowd and shouted out, "Since everyone is here for the spirit herb, I suggest that whoever is the first to grab the spirit herb will get to keep it. Do you all agree?" As soon as he finished speaking, a strongman took off his shirt, ready to be the first to charge forward. The strongman plunged into the deep pool with a splash. Soon, many people followed suit and jumped into the water, one after another. The strongman excitedly swam closer and closer to the crimson fruit. Killian couldn't help but feel nervous. Danny, on the other hand, had a sly smile on his face. Don't worry, he won't get it. Watching as the strongman was about to pick the spirit herb. Suddenly, he let out a painful scream. It's unknown what dragged him into the bottom of the lake. The people behind him looked terrified, only to see that the water quickly turned red with blood. The strong man covered in blood resurfaced from the water once again, shouting for help. Just then, a golden crocodile suddenly emerged from behind the strong man and lunged towards him. It swallowed the strong man in one gulp and quickly disappeared into the water. The crowd immediately shouted and fled in panic, saying there was a demon. Killian on the shore looked horrified. Was that the golden-scaled crocodile just now? Danny nodded. The golden-scaled crocodile is absorbing the heaven and earth spiritual energy here, and that crimson fruit is what it is guarding. To pick the crimson fruit, the golden-scaled crocodile must be eliminated first. Several terrified martial artists just escaped back to the shore. Danny suddenly shouted coldly, "A group of losers, quickly go back into the water to lure that beast out. I will take care of it." Obviously, this suicidal approach was not approved by anyone. Danny's face turned icy. He walked up to the person who had just disagreed with him. "You dare to oppose me," he said. The person showed no fear. "What if I do?" "Then you can die." He then struck at the person with his palm across the air. Just then, a black mist passed through the person's body. The martial artists were somewhat puzzled. Why didn't the person resist? Danny pointed a finger at the person's forehead. The person's body fell to the ground in response. He actually killed the Inner Realm Major Mastery martial artist with just one move. He saw that everyone had a frightened expression on their faces. Danny smirked threateningly. "Is there anyone else who opposes my opinion? You will all jump in. Without my orders, no one is allowed to retreat. Otherwise, you will be killed without mercy." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone ran towards Deep Pool in unison. They proceeded cautiously. Suddenly, a martial artist was dragged into the bottom of the lake. The remaining martial artists immediately reacted. They used all their strength to attack the location where the martial artist was dragged earlier. A huge golden beast suddenly rushed out of the water. It opened its huge mouth and bit towards the crowd. Danny immediately shouted, "Retreat while attacking, lure it ashore." Seeing that the crowd had almost lured it to the shore, Danny leaped into the air. A light sword materialized in his hand. He plunged the sword into the head of the golden-scaled crocodile. He continued to push down. The golden-scaled crocodile was split in half as easily as tofu. The killed golden-scaled crocodile fell back into the deep pool. Danny laughed excitedly. However, someone with a horrified expression pointed behind him and shouted, "Danny, look out!" When Danny turned his head, he saw a larger golden-scaled crocodile in front of him than before. The tiny crocodile, like an ant, dared to provoke the authority of the immortal sovereign. So the little golden-scaled crocodile that was previously killed in seconds by Danny is actually a child of this big golden-scaled crocodile. The big golden-scaled crocodile roared angrily. "You killed my child! You will all die!" The crowd was scared out of their wits. They didn't expect this huge beast to speak human language. Surely it is the true guardian spirit demon of the crimson fruit. Killian is already scared and collapsed on the ground. A slap from the golden-scaled crocodile killed him. Everyone faced this terrifying presence. They all ran away one after another. Only Danny refused to give up. Just one slap from the golden-scaled crocodile. It instantly killed the self-proclaimed extraordinary Danny. The bodyguard kept pulling Daisy, running non-stop. Daisy happened to see Carson walking straight towards Blackwater Pond. She loudly warned him to escape quickly. Carson calmly replied, "Don't worry. You'll be fine with me around." He then looked towards the golden-scaled crocodile. "You will be my mount, and I will spare your life." Golden-scaled crocodile doesn't give him any face at all. It slapped directly over. Although it is a bit of a pity to kill this golden-scaled crocodile. But the might of the immortal sovereign brooks no offense. When the mountain-splitting strike was executed, one of its claws was cut off. The golden-scaled crocodile, knowing it was no match, fled back to the bottom of the lake. It threw out harsh words, saying as long as it was in the water, Carson would never get the crimson fruit. At this moment, the crimson fruit is about an hour away from being ripe. Time is running out. Carson can't wait any longer. She watched as Carson walked towards the pool. Daisy reminded him again to be careful. Carson effortlessly walked on water, astonishing those around him once again. Carson's hair suddenly turned white. Then he delivered his strongest blow, shattering mountains and rivers. The huge Blackwater Pond was forcibly split apart. The golden-scaled crocodile, at the bottom of the water, was also split in half. When the lake surface returned to calmness again, Carson's hair color also returned to its original state. However, this attack consumed a lot of his spirit power. Daisy ran over worriedly and asked him how he was feeling. Carson said it's nothing serious, just rest for a while, and you'll be fine. Then he ordered the gang of hooligans to safely escort Daisy back home. After witnessing Carson's terrifying power, this group of people dared not disobey. The crimson fruit has ripened by now. Carson picked it without hesitation. In an instant, a strange fragrance filled the air. This is obviously spirit herb that has reached major mastery. Because Carson didn't have any storage ritual implements, he had to start refining the spirit herb on the spot. Otherwise, the medicinal properties would be wasted. About half an hour later, the spirit pill was successfully refined. Later, Carson picked off the 3 leaves on top, because hardly anyone knew that these leaves were also rare spirit herbs. As for Blackwater Pond, it is pitch black like ink all year round. It contains a very strong concentration of metal elements. Carson strikes towards the mountain wall facing Blackwater Pond. The rocks on the mountain surface fall off, revealing a large area of stone that looks like gold, which is the abundant metallic mineral contained in the golden crystal jade metal generates water golden crystal jade ore. This is what causes the deep pool to be as black as ink. And the golden crystal jade ore hidden in the deep here can allow Carson to cultivate his golden body to major mastery. They can only find Kyson to vent their anger. Male. Let Carson give him an account. The members of the demon sect simultaneously released their ancestral souls and attacked Carson. Carson simply pushed out a palm and shouted a calm character. Countless thunder surged out from his hands. Gu Qiansha, who was at the forefront, was knocked away. The small Karas behind were all instantly killed. This move is the suppression of the Heaven Xian Divine Fist by Carson. It consumes half of his spirit power to perform this killing move. However, it didn't instantly kill Gu Qiansha. he finally realized the power of a transformation realm grandmaster. The disciples of the sect were all wiped out, leaving only the second senior brother, Huang Shirong. This completely enraged Gu Qiansha. He took out the Mountain Protection Array map of the Heavenly Demon sect. He spat out a mouthful of old blood towards the array map. Countless evil spirits surged out from the map instantly. This map is known as the Array of Myriad Demons, renowned as the annihilation of myriad demons. As 100,000 evil spirits rushed out of the array map, the sky above Yun Lake seemed as if doomsday had arrived. Seeing this horrifying scene, Serenity and Callie couldn't help but worry about Carson. Even Kaisen couldn't help but break into a cold sweat for him. Carson, however, ignored it. How dare a small formation claim to be world-ending? I have a sword that can slay 10,000 ghosts. As soon as the words fell, Carson's life-bound spiritual sword flew out. A golden light soared straight into the sky. I saw the life-bound spiritual sword shuttle through the 10,000 ghosts as easily as slicing melons and cutting vegetables. In just a few moments, all the 10,000 ghosts were annihilated. The proud ultimate move was broken. Gu Qiansha finally felt fear. He asked who Carson really was. He wanted to have a clear understanding before he died. Carson simply said the 3 words, "Cultivator." Upon hearing these words, Gu Qiansha trembled and laughed. But his laughter was so bleak and filled with regret. Suddenly, several golden lights burst out from Gu Qiansha's eyes. The sound was followed by a loud noise. Gu Qiansha's entire body shattered into flying ashes. Yellow Shirong is the last breath. He knelt on the ground right away and begged for mercy from Carson. How could Carson let such a great villain go? Controlled the spirit's sword and made him take the lunch box directly. Carson has already noticed that Kaisen's soul is severely damaged. He can only let Callie take care of it first. When he finishes the next thing, he will help him repair it. And the next stop is the Valley of Despair. Gue Yiguang, sitting on the throne, is currently tasting wine. He completely disregarded the young man standing in front of him. Carson also did not waste words and initiated the attack first. Gue Yiguang's figure burst back to avoid this attack. Carson moved to the front of the 2 women. The 2 women are Truitt and her mother. Carson threw them essence-nourishing pills to help them start healing. Truitt just reminded him that Gue Yiguang has cultivated his protective aura. Gue Yiguang has already arrived in front of Carson. The 2 engaged in a head-on clash with a single move. Although Gue Yiguang released his protective aura, but 2 blood marks were still drawn on his chest. He asked in surprise what kind of hidden weapon Carson used. Carson said lightly, "This is not just any hidden weapon. It is the treasured flying sword of a sword immortal." Gue Yiguang was no longer calm in an instant. How could something from legends possibly exist in the real world? I have killed immortals and slayed dragons. What are you compared to me? How dare you question me? Remember, the sword that will slay you is called John Tion. Carson's words of dominance were uttered. It is now time for the sword to strike down. Gue Yiguang unleashes the Yin and Yang destruction fist. But still unable to withstand this terrifying sword energy. With a thud, he fell to the ground. He looked fearfully at Carson, unsure of what sword art this was. "You don't need to know. Spare me. My money and women will all be yours. When death is at hand, you act foolishly. If I kill you, will all these things belong to me?" Carson deliberately did not kill Gue Yiguang. He wanted to leave it to Truitt to deal with personally. Carson picked up Gue Yiguang's exclusive manual and took a look. He directly burned this evil technique into nothingness. He picked up another package. He found that it was actually a storage ring inside. This was truly a pleasant surprise. Although the space inside is only about 4 to 5 square meters, it is enough for his current needs. Written on the yellow cloth wrapping the ring is, "This ring is from Void Mountain. Remember, Pedro once said that entering Void Mountain will always lead to success. It seems he really needs to go and find some cultivation resources. Carson quickly arrived at Bo's villa. Because Bo has gathered all the herbs needed to refine the nourishing spirit pill. Now Carson can completely cure his loyal old disciple. In view of Bo's hard work, Carson rewarded him with an essence nourishing pill. This made Jax envious, saying that he also worked hard. Carson gave Bo the last one, indicating that if he wanted, he could collect the herbs according to the list and refine them himself. Jax mentioned that in a few days, the Jianya Summit will take place. Celebrities from various fields will attend. If Carson appears at that time, he will surely overshadow the richest businessman in Jianya, Wan Chungru, and make him unable to lift his head. Upon hearing the name Wan Chungru, Carson's killing intent suddenly surfaced. Because it was this person who destroyed his family and caused him to suffer in his past life. Carson said he naturally had to go. It's just that he wanted them to participate first in his name. After returning home, Kaisen lay weakly on the bed. Carson personally fed the refined vitalizing pill to Kaisen. In just a moment, Kaisen's soul was restored to its original state. He knelt down again and thanked him for saving his life. Carson sat upright and said, "It seems like the spirit-nourishing pill has worked well for you. If you hadn't cultivated for such a short time, you would have already reached the transformation realm, Master. I am confident that I will become a Grandmaster within 3 months. You don't have to wait. I will help you achieve it now." After saying that, the spiritual energy in my hand is transferred into Kaisen's body. Kaisen immediately sits cross-legged to cultivate, while Carson stands behind him guiding him in practicing the technique. Carson once again extends his hand to transfer spiritual energy to Kaisen. With a loud bang, Kaisen hovers in midair. This is the symbol of a transformation realm Grandmaster,